him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question to I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Just after 6 o'clock on Saturday, May the 17th, I have returned. Yes, I've been celebrating my 176th birthday. Delighted to be back, though. It was a lovely time, though, spending time with my family, eating, drinking, getting fatter. But nevertheless, I am back, and I have great news for you this morning, as you would expect. It's World Fiddle Day today. Yes, a day created to honour the bowed string instrument, made popular by Italian violin craftsman Antonio Stradivari. There you are. Also, today it's World Whiskey Day today, so you can enjoy the strings there, the violin. You can also have whiskey. It's an annual celebration to mark the rich heritage of the distilled spirit. It's made from fermented grains and is known for its diverse flavour and aging process, rather like me. There you go. Also very exciting, tonight is the final of Eurovision. Yes, that's right. Tonight from 8 o'clock, 37 countries will be battling it out to become this year's Eurovision winner. The competition is watched, wait for this, by 200 million people around the world. It is live from Basel in Switzerland. Yes.
Good evening, Europe. Good morning, Australia.
Yes, tonight is the final of Eurovision, 8 o'clock. You can watch it here. I was watching Eurovision, the semi-final, the first one and the second one. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But now, let's move on to this morning and this hour's Fascinating Facts. Today's Fascinating Facts. So, some good ones for you this hour. On this day in 1215, the country was in a state of civil war, and English barons, in revolt against King John, took possession of London. On this day in 1527, Archbishop Warren began a secret inquiry into Henry VIII's marriage with Catherine of Aragon, the first step in divorce proceedings. And keeping on that theme, on this day in 1536, George Boleyn, who was an English courtier, he was a nobleman as well, and he was the brother of Queen Consort Anne Boleyn, along with Viscount Rochford, and 4 other men were executed for treason. You wouldn't want to be around in King Henry VIII's day, would you? And those are this hour's Fascinating Facts.
Weekend mornings we're taking flight. With David Bull, everything feels right. Weekend breakfast, shining like the sun.
Good morning, just after 6 o'clock on Saturday, May the 17th. I'm here, David Bull is here, Amy Fisher is with me this morning. What could be better? Good morning, Amy Fisher.
Good morning. I'm delighted to know it's World Fiddling Day, because I actually used to play...
Fiddle, not fiddling.
Fiddle Day. That would be another thing entirely.
It would be entirely different, yes.
Look, I actually used to play the violin, but I was so bad at it. My music teacher phoned my parents to say they were wasting their money on lessons, and I've never let them forget it.
That's great. So you gave up?
So I think my father also agreed, on the basis that he could hear my practising, that I was terrible and probably was not the best use of his money. Well, I was genuinely scarred by that, though, told I was so musically inept that it was a waste of my parents' money.
It always makes me laugh that children are given two very difficult instruments to play: the recorder, which sounds absolutely dreadful, and the violin.
Oh, it was madness. Like, they just piano. Why did I not have piano lessons? Exactly.
Yeah.
So now, as I say, I've never let them forget that they sort of stymied any musical aspirations I might have had early
that is a
on.
great link into Eurovision, because I asked you, are you a fan of Eurovision, and you told me no.
I know that lots of people get very excited by it, and there's all these hundreds of millions that you said are going to watch it. It's just not something I've ever been particularly into.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. It began as a technical experiment in television broadcasting, the live, simultaneous, transnational broadcast that Europe has been watching for nearly 70 years, by the way. It started in May 24th, 1956. There were 7 nations taking part at that time: the Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, Germany, France, Luxembourg and Italy. Not the United Kingdom. We weren't involved, and that's because we had our own song contest that year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were busy. No, can't take part, we're busy. And in that first edition, each country submitted 2 songs, and of course it has come on considerably since then. Now, it all came about, the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, created a Eurovision network in 1954. The idea behind that was to exchange and produce common television programmes, but actually the whole idea of this came from a chap called Marcel Bezençon, the Director General of the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation. But the idea, and Gabriella's going to like this, the idea for the Eurovision Song Contest would come from RAI, the Italian state broadcaster. The Italian National Broadcasting Organisation began their services in 1954, and it has come on enormously. I've actually, and we'll talk more about Eurovision throughout the day, but I've been to the Eurovision Song Contest.
Oh, wow, OK.
I was there in Birmingham. Once Katrina and the Waves had won for us, I was in Birmingham. I was working for the BBC at the time. And that is when Dana International won. And I have to say, there is something amazing about the whole world opting in. I mean, obviously, I'm very used to live television events, but for the whole world to opt in to a single location, and actually, the pinnacle of my career would be to be able
exchanging, you know, the exchange of sort of cultural interest, and as you say, bringing everybody together. And I really don't mean to offend anybody while I say this, but isn't Eurovision sort of slightly known for a lot of the songs being a bit rubbish?
Yeah, but that's brilliant, isn't it?
Okay,
but that's the whole point. It's camp, it's glittery, it's fabulous, and then you've got the juxtaposition of Western Europe and the more traditional songs that we would be used to. Eastern Europe and some of them, and the hard rock that you've seen.
Slightly weird.
Slightly weird, you know, like, what was it, Lordi, with their big rock anthem, which they came on with masks looking like beasts.
I was about to, wasn't there some sort of strange bondagey type? There's some of the costumes can be a little bit...
Yes.
It's
The
a bit
UK's
weird,
entry last year as well.
A little bit controversial, but no, look, I entirely agree with the sort of aims and why it was set up. Well, then the other thing I would add into it is, again, isn't the voting known to be quite sort of tactical and political in places?
Entirely political. So as we went through the Brexit shenanigans, and we'll talk more about that as well, the United Kingdom did very badly because, of course, the rest of Europe wanted to punish us and hate us, and, of course, now they seem to like us. But interestingly, and it's interesting you bring up the politics side, Israel has actually qualified for the Eurovision's grand final, and, of course, in the dress rehearsal, I don't know if you know this, but protesters tried to disrupt the dress rehearsal.
yeah.
And you do see it, you know, you are allowed to carry any any flag at all. Of course, the Palestinian flag was quite prominent in both semi-finals I saw. There are some rules about not having oversized flags, but obviously Israel did qualify for the grand final. Now, lots of countries very concerned about that. Spain, Ireland, Slovenia called for a debate on Israel's involvement. But at the end of the day, if Israel is a contestant, yes, of course, you know, there are terrible things going on around the world, but surely they should be allowed to compete. There again, I'm going to throw something else at you, but Russia is no longer allowed to compete.
I was literally about to make that, because there is a clear read across in this case. We're talking about a sort of singing contest, but obviously, well, as you've just said, Russia's no longer allowed to compete in this, or indeed at some point they were facing a ban from some sort of sporting events as well, obviously in response to their invasion of Ukraine. So, you know, I think, well, that's a sort of, I guess, wonderful dichotomy then of Eurovision, is on the one hand you have the camp, glitzy, weird musical celebration, but actually underneath it there are some of these very serious political issues, and it will be interesting to see what happens with Israel in the actual final.
It will, and of course the whole ethos of Eurovision is united through music, which is their slogan, and the idea being, and I quite like this as a Brexiteer, where I don't want a federal Europe. I like being in a family of Europe. And this is a very good example where we can have cooperation and collaboration and friendship with other European countries, but not necessarily be beholden to the ACHR,
No, and as I say, I entirely agree with that those very laudable aims. But as I say, and we probably, unfortunately, will see a little bit with Israel tonight, you know, people do use that very lovely principle of bringing people together through music, and it does get slightly twisted when you do have these political shenanigans and countries voting together on en bloc and for political purposes, which, as I say, then, you know, does make it all rather a bit more serious behind the sort of bright lights and the showbiz of it.
Just very quickly, I want to mention something else. So when I was watching the second one, which I was watching, was that last night? No, night before. My Skybox kept crashing, and I had to keep rebooting it. Not just once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. 30,000 people at least complaining that their boxes had gone off. And it got me thinking, do you think that was a cyber attack?
I literally, as I say, I mean, certainly not beyond the realms of possibility at all. If we are talking about that, you know, 30,000 people, that suggests something a bit more than kind of, you know, momentary outage for sort of, you know, a glitch in the system. So no, that was when you mentioned that, before we came on air, my first thought was that doesn't sound like maybe David's just having a bad day with his and it was across the country, actually, because I put it on Twitter. That's what I mean. So it doesn't sound like a kind of glitch somewhere, you know, sort of isolated. If it's certainly was across the country, I think that's very and many customers were saying, I'm fuming, it's an absolute disgrace. Of course, you pay a lot of money for Sky now, it's really expensive. And of course, in the middle of the darts was on, so lots of people were trying to watch the dance competition, and of course Eurovision semi-final, and once you were unplugging your box and then plugging it back in, you'd missed half the song. So I contacted Sky, and there was no apology from them at all, just said, oh, you need to reboot your box, and I don't think that's good enough, actually. Lots of people getting in contact, by the way. Sharon Miller says, David, I can assure you the UK will not win. I agree with you, Sharon. It's terrible, our song. What were we thinking when we put it in? We'll talk more about that later on. Remember Monday, this is Sharon again, does not stand a chance in hell of winning. The name alone says it all. Well, the hell do the UK get the performers from? Can't they do better? I wonder, is there a concerted effort by the BBC not to win, because it's very expensive to host the competition? I actually don't... How are the singers selected? Is there some kind of competition domestically?
There is, yes. It's whittled down, so we actually
have public voting.
Yeah, well, yes. I think with public voting, but also with a jury as well. So.
But hasn't there been some there have been some good songs, wasn't there? Didn't Will
I'll come back to that. But also Ollie Alexander, which I absolutely loved as a song, but when he transposed that onto the Eurovision stage, it was too raunchy, it was too racy.
Well, I would genuinely like to know a bit more about how UK contestants get to be the UK contestant, and how much public voting there is involved until that point. Because yeah, sometimes, you know, it's obviously just not me that looks at the songs and think, really? That's the one we're going with?
Do you have a favourite for this year? You don't know any of them, do you?
I don't know any of them.
Oh, I thought Spain was excellent.
Okay, I mean, now that you've sort of given me a slight roasting for not being more excited about this, I probably will end up now watching it this evening and become like some quite, convert to the Eurovision cause.
So lots of people have Eurovision parties, I was hearing, so that you adopt a country, and every time your country is mentioned, you drink.
Take a shot or something. Okay, look, I can get on board
I'm not
with
condoning drinking. Or, indeed, what was the other one? That you basically pick out a country out of a hat and then there are various games that go on and get played.
Oh, so there was a figure around yesterday that, on average, Brits will spend about £76 per person doing a sort of Eurovision-y...
Great.
Either it's the sort of drinking games or whatever. So, yes, as I say, like, I'm going to get the enthusiasm levels up for this.
So other people pick out a country out of a hat and then you have to provide the cuisine of the country that you have picked out of the hat.
What happens if you get... I mean, Italy or France, wonderful.
Yes.
What happens if you get...
Hungry.
Well, quite literally in some cases then, sure.
Yes.
You take my point.
Lithuania.
Yes.
Yes, what do they eat?
Dumplings.
Ooh, I like dumplings.
Well, I actually don't particularly know, but I'm just saying there are some, or like Spain with all the tapas, that would be wonderful. But just perhaps some of the others.
She's fierce. I'm telling you, when you watch Spain, she's fierce. And apparently she dialed it down in the first semi-final, but she's going to dial it up.
Okay.
I rest my case. Should we talk about politics? Because there is a lot going on this morning. I'll just show you. I'm going to show you the front pages this morning because it disturbs me deeply. The Times. Starmer hails a Brexit reset. As a Brexiteer and someone who fought very hard for a Brexit we still haven't achieved, this makes me very unhappy. The Guardian, the UK is on path to a deeper EU relationship, says Reeves. Also, weirdly, and we'll talk more about this, the Labour government literally has no sense of direction or policy. They're talking about winter fuel cut, the U-turn plan by Labour. They know how unpopular that was. The Mirror is covering that as well, New Hope on winter fuel. And then also the Daily Express is talking about fuel pay U-turn as well. And then Rachel Reeves in the Telegraph is trying to get her hands on people's ISA cash. So in terms of just rudderless government, we'll come to that in a minute. But the front page of the Times this morning is saying Sir Keir Starmer said his Brexit reset deal will make people better off. This is how he's trying to sell it. He's clearing the way to let young Europeans live and work in Britain. Now, I don't have a major problem with this as long as it is policed properly. So he says young people can move to the UK for 2 years. It will not herald a return to free movement. I don't believe you.
It's the end of the wedge, surely. I mean, once you start this kind of incremental nibbling away at one of the most fundamental principles behind Brexit, and by the way, I was not a Brexiteer.
No.
But in all of this, even I'm annoyed by this because, the country voted for something and this government, by some sort of, as I say, incremental nibbling at the edges, very much looks to be trying to, if not outrightly reverse, there is definitely backsliding going on here. As I say, for something that people voted for, you can't... And my problem with this is a principled one, which is once you had a vote and the country voted, majority of people voted the way they did for Brexit, if you don't like the answer, you just can't keep asking the question again and again in a democracy in the hope of getting, a different response. Because if that were the case, I'd have been calling for another general election, because I certainly didn't want this government that came in a year ago. Do you see what I mean? You can't, because they didn't like the result.
As someone who has been at the heart of government, what is it about this government that is so tone deaf? Whether it's the winter fuel allowance, the VAT on private schools, whether it's attacking elderly people, the farmers, the inheritance tax, now trying to get closer to the European Union when we have had a referendum, a once-in-a-lifetime referendum, remember, on whether we want to be closer and have closer ties with the European Union. And remember, this isn't just about freedom of movement, because this is going to be about veterinary standards, it's going to fishing, it's going to be overseen by a pan-European board. No, that is not what we voted for.
So I think there's two quite fundamental issues with this government. One is they just don't have a strategic plan. And I think that it was in part for something as simple as they just didn't quite realise how difficult actually being in government is. So they sort of come in, and also, I think that a lot of the most senior people in the Labour Party themselves did not agree with Brexit. So now they are you know, in government, they are just sort of trying to nibble around the edges and, you know, push it back from where I think the majority of people thought it should be and have progressed by now. So I think they lack pretty much a sort of principled strategy, hence why they keep seeming to be buffeted around. There's been these U-turns. Last week there were more talks of even resets. I can't remember now how many sort of resets we're meant to have had under Keir Starmer, who, by the way, hasn't yet quite been in power for you know, a sort of full year. And then underneath that, I just don't really know what their tactics are, because if you look at the mesh of stories that are on the front pages that you've just held up, they are all sort of just weird. There doesn't seem to be like a cohesive plan that was coming out of Number 10 this week, when they've ended up with this sort of mesh of stories on the front pages, most of which are actually not particularly good for the government.
But also, in terms of Starmer, if you remember, he was about to announce return hubs with Albania.
And then Albania
said, well, actually, we're not going to sign that with you. Then, of course, he wants to get deeper into a relationship with the European Union, again, not thought through. Macron tapping him on the shoulder, saying, well, you can have a better relationship with us, but we want your fish. Now, talking to my colleague and friend, June Mummery, who was in the European Parliament with me, she is spitting blood over this because, of course, we ceded our national sovereignty and our fish. It ends next year, and then it goes to annual negotiations, which is the right thing to do. So you can say on an annual basis, this is how much you can have in terms of fishing quota. But no, what the European Union want to do is they want to have not a 4-year deal, but a 5-year deal. Of course they do, because they want our fish. Well, I'm telling you, you're not having our fish.
Well, I mean, the fishing, you know, sort of cod wars have been going on, well, since we were so closely tied to Europe. And, you know, Macron has, as you say, has not been shy about making it clear that, you know, that is one of the big things that he wants to get out of it. So in the Times article, there is also reference to the fact that, you know, British diplomats want these extra fishing, access to the fishing waters, and they're tying this quite closely to whether Britain will then be sort of more formally part of the defence bloc. Now, if in any way the UK government sort of goes down that route and cedes some greater form of fishing rights to the French over closer sort of defence ties and defence funds, if we think that through, that's mad, right?
Yeah.
Because in terms of defence, Europe absolutely needs us as much as we need them. So we don't need to cede up the fishing rights to have a very close working defence relationship with Europe. Because, you know, if nothing the Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has shown, it is that we, Europe, you know, Western countries need to work together against, you know, global military threats. So as I say, the idea that in order to be part of that kind of mutually assured defence scenario needs to be contingent on giving up additional fishing rights to the French is bonkers. It's just intellectually incoherent. And my problem with this is the Labour government are not good at negotiations. Look at Chagos this week, that you know,
we'll talk about that as well,
mired in difficulties there. So, you know, I'm afraid as much as the PM, you know, was on the sort of global stage this week and, you know, wanting to play the big statesman, he has not come out of it well. As I say, the particular slap in the face about having, you know, a deal with Albania over some sort of deportation hubs. I mean, there's no sort of, I hate this phrase, but there's no way of putting lipstick on that particular pig, right?
No.
Because I'm sure we're going to come on to, we've had a record number of people coming here illegally this year. We're only in May, so the months are only going to get warmer.
I think we're at 12,000.
Yeah. So you know, so we've got all the summer months when, you know, the travel conditions are sort of better if you are trying to come over here. And, you know, pretty much on day one of being in government, the Labour scrapped the Rwanda scheme. Now they've had this slap in the face about having a deportation centre ordeal anytime soon with Albania, which then kind of, what is Downing Street now going to put forward?
But my understanding is the return hub idea is like Rwanda, but lighter. in Rwanda, you would have been processed in Rwanda and a decision made. With his return hubs, you stay in the United Kingdom, paid for by us, by the way, until you're processed, and then you're removed to a return hub. But those countries that are hosting the return hubs may then decide we don't want them, and they go back to Britain. So, in fact, it is a Rwanda-like deal.
But it was a horribly imperfect plan, as you've just said. For Naughty, it was sort of being for a Rwanda-light, for want of a better way of putting it. But my point is now this government doesn't even have that. So quite literally, when you have this problem on your plate of literally hundreds of people arriving practically every day, I genuinely don't even know what they're briefing as their plan.
I mean, it's fascinating. When you look at his actual polling, the Prime Minister, the favourability view of the Prime Minister has fallen from 62% to 45% in a month. So he now has a negative, net negative approval rating, which is absolutely diabolical so early on in the Parliament. Amy, thanks for the moment. We'll come back because there's a lot more to talk about with regards to the Brexit deal, not the Brexit deal, the reset deal that Keir Starmer is trying to effect, which will take place tomorrow, the signing of that, not tomorrow, Monday, the signing of that. But the question I have for you this morning is Keir Starmer trying to undo Brexit? And if he is, and it certainly seems that way to me, if he is doing that, he's undermining voters. Now, what does that mean to the general public? How does that change political arithmetic? Does it mean that actually the voters are going to move to other parties? And if so, what does that look like? 0344 499 1000. Those calls charged at the national rate. You can also text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at talkTV. After the break, I'm going to talk more about this EU reset deal. What does it mean for fishermen? What is Macron actually trying to achieve? What does Nigel Farage make of this reset as well? And what does Nigel Farage say when he says, make me Prime Minister and I'll scrap Starmer's Brexit deal? All to play for. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
This is a tried and tested method. It's been working, it's regulated, it's monitored. There are different systems elsewhere in the world. We're not doing that, we're doing the Oregon model, and also we're making it the British model, and that's what's important about today. MPs saying, this is our template, how can we make it as good as possible? So yes, it avoids any loopholes, but it also allows those people who want to let go. Now frankly, most of us will carry on to our last breath. Yeah. Those people in agony, we've got to give them that option, that right, that choice. It's their death, their body. Why can't they have that right to let go?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk Weekend Breakfast. I'm joined by Amy Fisher this morning. We're talking about this EU reset. Starmer insists the reset with the EU will make people better off. That's the sale pitch. You're going to be better off. That's what he's saying. He says that the plan to let young Europeans live and work in the UK as part of a reciprocal deal with the EU would not mean a return to free movement. I think it does. Amy think it does. I think most like-minded people think it does. He says it will be equivalent to a similar arrangement with countries such as Australia, which caps the number allowed to move under the scheme. I just don't have any kind of confidence in the state to remove people at the end of the 2 years for a start. That's my worry with that. And also, it goes on to say this deal will bring the UK into the closest, this is the important bit, into the closest alignment with the EU since Brexit. Wait for this. It will cover trade, agriculture, security and defence. And Amy, this is the bit that I think people haven't seen. Who is going to oversee all of this? A pan-European body, which is what we did our best to get out of.
But this goes back to the point that, you know, that has been made, that whether you were a Brexiteer or a Remainer, the Brexit campaign and the vote and what the result of the vote showed, that Britain didn't want this close alignment and doesn't want to go back to closest alignment. So however Starmer is trying to say, oh, it's just for the sort of 18, this youth mobility scheme is just for the 18 to 30s, it's for 2 years, it's for specific reasons. As I say, it's nibbling at the edges. It's just an erosion of the fundamental principle. This is what I mean about Starmer not really seem to be
He's not listening.
Governed by principle or listening at all, because however you try and sort of spin this isn't what people voted for. This is not what the Brexit vote was about. And as I say, I'm saying that as somebody, you know, who didn't particularly support it, but you accept that is what the majority of people in the country voted for. And also, you touched on it, but the problem with setting up any kind of scheme like this is I don't trust, as you've just said, the ability for people who've been here for those 2 years to then be effectively removed. And also, we know that whatever kind of system you set up for people legally coming to Britain, other people find a way to abuse it. They find loopholes. That's just the reality. And that's a big problem that the Labour government has got at the moment without setting up another scheme, which A, the country doesn't want, and B, could just be another route to abuse. So sort of on any level, I mean, it'll be really... The front pages today, I should imagine, are going to, well, have already prompted such a backlash. It's going to be very interesting to see how the number 10 communications machine is dealing with this now. Well, is dealing with this, you know, literally now, this morning. You know, Sunday newspapers go to bed pretty early, right? So if you haven't sort of done your briefing to a Sunday newspaper by about 2 p.m. the latest today, you know, your argument for getting any kind of narrative out there is lost. So as I said,
is that early?
It really is. If you're going to kind of materially... If there's breaking news, so literally, you know, we're sort of like we're with a Bicester fire. If something kind of happens, of course, the papers can change to reflect that. But when you're talking about being able to set a kind of narrative or give some kind of what you would want as editorial kind of steer, as I say, unless you've done it, you know, unless you're doing it pretty much now. The direction of the Sunday papers is going to be set, and then you've got Sunday papers going into the actual negotiations on Monday. So again, as I just say, I kind of wonder what conversations are happening within the number 10's comms machinery at the moment, because I'd be having a bit of a
wobble.
Look, I don't want to say panic, but you know, I would be kind of quite worried about this, particularly. Actually, with The Guardian, where Rachel Reeves seems to have gone, she's given this kind of interview and seems to have gone even further in terms of what the headline is, UK on path to deeper EU relationship. And I say the kind of backlash which these headlines today will understandably prompt from people. But as I say, this will be causing a bit of a scuffle.
I mean,
in
you and
number
I
10.
talked about this, that in many ways she is very stupid in many senses, because she thinks she can brief The Guardian with a pro-Guardian message without anyone else actually reading it or seeing what she's saying. So she also is saying in The Independent, any deal would not be a one-off. It will be a step towards closer partnership with Europe. That is exactly what we voted against. That is not what the British people want.
She goes further. She says, I see that as a journey. Not what happens on Monday is the end. There will be future areas that we can do more. I mean, these are her words. This isn't, you know, a hot mic moment. She hasn't been caught kind of off the cuff. She hasn't sort of, you know, misspoken in some way. This is, you know, as I say in The Guardian, this is what she has chosen to say, which, you know, did
so
she just go a bit rogue? Well, I mean, she's literally just thinks she's talking, you know, this is a message she presumably thought she wanted to land with the Guardian readers, but it's landed slap bang, you know, in black and white, so that everybody else can read it too. And this is what I mean about sort of even leaving aside the, you know, the sort of strategy of anything they're trying to do. You know, that Reeves did this interview must have been sanctioned by Number 10. I mean, and if it wasn't, that's totally rogue. So either they did know about it, it was sanctioned. I mean, she must have tested out what she was going to say to your team. I mean, if you're a member of the cabinet, you don't just wander off and have like a nice chat with the Guardian without sort of, you know, as I say, strategising or, you know, trying out the lines that you want to land. You know, you don't, as I say, if you're a member of the cabinet, you don't just sort of wander off and chat to national newspapers without some idea of what you want the message to be landing for you.
Well, just moving it on. So France is leading an EU attempt to squeeze 11th hour concessions out of Keir Starmer. Essentially what France is saying, OK, closer defence pact, but the price of that is your fish. Now, as far as I can see, and you made this point earlier, they're not related in the slightest. So what Starmer should do is push back and say, no, that's not acceptable. We're happy to have annual negotiations based on how much fish we're allowing you to have out of British waters. Now, as I said, of course, what they want is a deal for 5 years. Starmer so far said there can be a deal for 4 years. What is he thinking? And also, this goes back to a much bigger issue for me, which is I come from a coastal community, as June Mummery would call them. So have any of the cabinet actually bothered to go to Lowestoft, to Great Yarmouth, to the places where they've been hit really hard by the fact they can't actually land the fish that are in British coastal waters?
Well, I think you've just hit a bit of the nail directly on the head there, because I do fear, you know, there was this quote from an EU diplomat saying France has made a hard link between fish and defence, so I imagine a fishing deal will get done by Monday. We mean, that's fine, Mr. Nice EU diplomat, but you are not reflective of the very people in some of the constituencies that you've just mentioned, that in fact this government is meant to be representing the interests of. And so with any of this, policy and decisions do get made in Whitehall in a bit of an ivory tower. And I fear, and I sort of way back in the day I used to actually work in, you know, DEFRA, the department responsible for farming and rural communities and whatnot. So I sort of know, you know, firsthand that actually a lot of people sort of working in that department have no real life experience of, you know, being a farmer or being in a fishing community or actually having much beyond theoretical understanding of those industries.
And that is fascinating. So certainly what I'm hearing on the ground and from my friends and people who I live with in the country is they feel the countryside is under attack by a metropolitan government, whether it's about inheritance tax on farmers or down the road it's your people who are involved in fishing, because, as you say, Whitehall has absolutely no understanding of what is going on. I thought this was interesting as well in the Telegraph. Nigel Farage says he will tear up Britain's Brexit treaties if he becomes Prime Minister, starting with Starmer's abject surrender of the reset deal with Brussels. Now, this is going to be red meat to people across the country this morning. He predicted Keir Starmer will be punished at the ballot box for betraying Brexit voting Labour voters a week after Reform's triumph in last week's local elections. The Prime Minister thinks he'll get away with it, but he underestimates how strong Brexit feeling is in the Red Wall. I would agree. I was in Runcorn. I can see the anger. People are seething. These are traditionally tribally Labour voters who say the Labour Party in its current inception in Downing Street doesn't understand us.
Oh, well, this is an absolute gift to Reform, who have already, you know, who were wildly on the march in the polls, you know, back in January, obviously with the local elections.
31% is
local
the latest
elections
one.
and the by-election. You know, this isn't a blip. They're not sort of going to go away. So the fact that Labour seems to be taking this approach to Europe is only going to be the bellows into the sort of fire. This has turned into a wildly mixed metaphor, but it's only going to be sort of bellows to the fire that is already, you know, Reform's surge in popularity. You know, I read in one of the papers today that Farage, that Keir Starmer has sort of said or indicated that he would be open or wouldn't say no to doing a kind of TV debate with Farage. I mean, I think
bring
that
it
would
on,
be
I say.
I think that would be you know, sort of fascinating from all sides. But yes, as I say, I should imagine Reformer sort of looking at today's papers with some amount of glee is too flippant a word, but this is only very much going to help boost their popularity and support even further.
Amy, thanks for the moment. I'm asking the question this morning, is Keir Starmer trying to undo Brexit? And if he is, and it certainly looks like it to me, he's defying voters, but what does that mean in terms of the political geography? I mentioned, actually, just in terms of the latest polling, and Amy mentioned this as well, the latest polling shows there is enormous shift going on in terms of the way that people are going to vote. This is Find Out Now, which I found last night. Reform on 33, Labour on 21. 33! Labour on 21, Conservatives on 16. I mean, what is the Conservative Party doing? Lib Dems on 14 and Green on 11. So you've got, what, a 12-point lead by Reform over an incumbent Labour government in what should be the honeymoon period of their government. Let me know your thoughts, please. 0344 499 1000. Also, after the break, the Labour government, and this goes back to you being the former director of communications for the Conservative Party, because you mentioned there is no strategy at all. And now suddenly they seem to be saying, right, we maybe did mess up on the winter fuel payment, but we're going to take money from elderly people in their ISAs because we need some more cash. We want you to have more speculative investments into stocks and shares. That makes no sense to me either. And then, of course, the Chagos deal, at the same time, he has to come clean and say, how much is this going to cost? What does it do to national security? And now you've got Mauritius cozying up with China.
There's very thin gruel today for the Labour government, who purely on the basis of the list you very quickly rattled off in a few seconds there, really needs to be a bit honest with itself and sort of, you know, people aren't annoyed with the Labour government because they've passed a honeymoon period. The Labour government never had a honeymoon period because very quickly it just did a bunch of stuff like the winter fuel payments, which they had never told people about and have really hurt people. And so it's the double whammy of, like, you didn't tell us you were going to do this, and now we're just expected to swallow it up. Now with the winter fuel payments, you know, the rumblings after the walloping that Labour got in the local elections, that's when it was sort of being floated, you know, are they going to reverse or not? You know, Keir Starmer sort of ruled it out, but now it's all sort of back again. If I was to make a prediction about it, I think they are probably going to sort of say they're going to reverse a bit of it for, say, the lowest income, poorest folk, which actually will really satify no one. So then they're going to end up having to reverse on the sort of whole thing in some way. Like, if you're going to do it, the sort of political term, if you're going to do a reverse ferret, like, reverse it all the way. Do you know, rip the plaster.
Mea culpa, we got it wrong.
Exactly, not some you know, mishmash where they're going to end up, as I say, you know, pleasing no one, because in the fuel cuts, what it uniquely managed to do was unite left and right, because literally no one agreed with it. So you know, uniquely, I mean, it's uniquely, that is something.
I mean,
the
they are amazing at coming out with policy that no one agrees with. I mean, it's really quite a talent.
The one thing you can quite see in all of this.
It's quite a talent. Very quickly, just some messages. Andy says, good morning. This is Andy in Notts. Good morning, David. I voted no in 1975. I voted leave in 2016. Starmer thinks my vote is worthless. We haven't voted in my county council elections due to a death. We go on the 12th of June. Starmer is a traitor. I have never despised a politician more. Nigel needs to put into our reform contract to reverse anything Starmer does and then go further for a full no-deal Brexit. Good morning, David and Amy. This is Jane. Of course, that despicable man wants us back in the EU. I do not understand how the French can dictate our fishing waters. Is there any way at all to get this government out? Have a think about that over the break. More still to come. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Right, I'm with Amy Fisher. These three stories really come together, actually, this morning. This is the Independent, the Telegraph, and this is the Telegraph as well. So we talked about the winter fuel payment. Disastrous, horrible. You get into government and then you say, right, I'm going to clobber elderly people. I mean, I don't know who came up with that in a policy discussion, because I would have thought there would be enormous kickback, even at the lowest levels of people.
It's just a terrible, terrible idea.
Terrible. But also, it's your first policy.
As your first policy, which you hadn't told about. But actually, that goes exactly to the point, because they clearly, whoever did come up with it, came up with it in a vacuum. Because what the outcries we were just saying from everybody, left or right, you know, young, old, well off, less well off, like everybody absolutely hates it, which, you know, most normal people would have been able to tell you straight away if you'd suggested it.
I mean, just on a macro level, you're taking money off British pensioners who will freeze to death, but allowing loads of immigrants into the country. I mean, it doesn't take a great headline writer to put the comparisons together.
Because it's the unfairness of it,
it's
right?
unfair, exactly. So what they're now looking at is whether they are going to increase that allowance, the 11,500 income cut threshold, over which you no longer get the payment, or possibly reversing it altogether. They won't do that. And of course, they're deeply worried about reform. Now, here we go. The same line comes out of Downing Street. We had to take tough but right decisions in the budget to stabilise the economy after years of damage and decline. We all know that's nonsense. We all know the £22 billion hole doesn't exist. We know it's all fabrication. Also, the policy, the energy policy there, is expected to save the government around £1.5 billion a year, but 100,000 pensioners pushed into poverty in a developed country. Not acceptable. Then, of course, they're now going to go after people who've been really good and put money into ISAs because they believe these are really a tax-efficient way to save money, and they are. And now they're saying, well, actually, Rachel Reeves' next big idea is to reduce the limit, which is 20,000 at the moment, that you can put in there in a fiscal year, down to 4,000.
Yes.
Who made this up?
OK, so this is... I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's, again, so intellectually incoherent. So apparently the reason why the Chancellor is considering lowering the annual tax-free allowance is in an effort to push more people to invest in shares.
In more risky
because she wants to promote investment in British businesses. I mean, well, look, fine, but can we just be really blunt about this? ISAs are, you know, one of the safest ways, perhaps, if you're moving into retirement or you're older person. That's sort of a safe place to put your money to provide additional income when you most need it at the end of your working life. Frankly, some of the people who are choosing to invest in cash ISAs now, they don't have the option of investing in shares, because shares can take a long time to show a dividend or return. And frankly, if you're, you're at the end of your getting towards the end of your certainly working life, you don't really have time necessarily to sit around and wait for those dividends or be able to weather the ups and downs of shares, because as you say, they're riskier, they're not sort of guaranteed in the way that ISAs are. So once again, Reeves just seems to be, I don't know what's a better word, picking on people who've actually been sensible and planned for their retirement and are saving themselves and have made these responsible decisions to allow them to do this. And now they're sort of volte-face being told, no, that you can't do that either. I'll be having some of that. And also, she sort of goes on about, as most politicians do, about the broadest in society bearing the heaviest burden. A sentiment which I think most people actually, in theory, agree with, right? But can we just be blunt about this? People who might have £20,000 a year to invest, and yes, that is a good amount of money, but people who have £20,000 a year to invest are not multi-millionaires.
Of course they're not.
They are not these kind of broad shoulders. They're not,
Or they may be people who chose not to go on holiday every single year and they put their money into a savings vehicle
turning
to
it
look
into
after
some
themselves.
kind of class warfare of, oh, you've got £20,000, therefore, you must be rich, you can afford, to pay a bit more. It's like, well, no, this is not, as I say, nowhere near people who are multi-millionaires. So I think this idea has been floating around for a couple of months. I sort of assume she kind of backed off doing it around springtime, because it is so wildly unpopular.
Is this Rachel from accounts?
It's Rachel from accounts.
Also, just one other thing before the break. There's another story here. Keir Starmer has been urged to come clean on the cost of the Chagos deal. So not only does this undermine national security, as far as I can see, so ceding territory, which is United Kingdom territory, to a country that's never owned the island, by the way, who's cozying up to China. And it's not like we're just giving it away. We're going to have to pay them £90 million every single year. Hang on a minute. If you said to a child, OK, so you own these sweets, you have to give them to that child, but you're going to have to pay that child £90 million to take your sweets, I don't think anyone would say that's a great deal.
Again, bafflingly sort of bonkers in its conception, which they, you know, they have had the furore over this, which is why they sort of seem the last day or so to kind of backs off a little bit again, because they've seen what people's response to the sort of frankly ludicrous proposal the proposal is, and in this, as certainly the Telegraph copy intimates, Labour could face a sizable rebellion from their own sort of backbenchers about the welfare cuts and all the rest. Actually, this would cause a problem it's not just the general public outrage that he would have to be facing. Actually, internally, this would cause handling problems as well, at a time when there is the welfare reforms that Labour backbenchers are already upset by, winter fuel payments, and then look on the other hand, handing some tens of millions of pounds away to potentially the Chinese by the back door.
Yeah, great idea. Really good idea. In terms of national security. I mean, it is utterly ridiculous. Thanks, Amy. Good morning, David. This is Steve from Windsor. Good morning to you. Great show as always. Thank you. Quite simply, in my opinion, whatever Starmer says, no one believes him. Absolutely no chance that Labour will win the next election. Reform all the way. David, can the people take the government to court? Because a democratic vote was taken to leave Europe. So is this the same as a contract? And if Starmer breaks the contract, he should be thrown out of office and a new election should take place. Where are the human rights lefties now Starmer has U-turned, brackets lied, on everything he said to win the election? David, this is Sean Cooper. Sean in Bridlington, good morning. What's the betting the youth mobility scheme for recently minted Europeans? We'll see the number coming here omitted from the immigration figures. Another Labour lie. That lie, the word lie comes up a lot, doesn't it? And cover up incoming. Good morning, Dr. David. This is Samantha. Good morning to you. Nigel and reform, for the sake of the ordinary people of this country, need to bring down the corrupt parliament. The whole system, PMQs, the speaker, second homes payment, expenses, the constant holidays, which are more than teachers, everything needs reforming. And a new purpose-built parliament with accommodation, so no more second homes. I've said this for a long time. Payment and expenses. Reform needs to publish a manifesto and stop playing Westminster games. There is actually a manifesto, which is obviously was for the last general election. And of course, these things are constantly updated. David, the Brexit reset. This is Sue. Good morning, Sue. The Brexit reset is the last nail in the coffin of Starmer's pathetic attempt at government. Unfortunately, Britain is trapped in a system that can't get rid of itself of its political enemies. Starmer is against democracy. We're getting closer to being run by a fascist bunch of British-hating mob than we have ever been. Don't go anywhere. This is Talk.
this is a tried and tested method. It's been working, it's regulated, it's monitored. There are different systems elsewhere in the world. We're not doing that, we're doing the Oregon model, and also we're making it the British model, and that's what's important about today. MPs saying, this is our template, how can we make it as good as possible? So yes, it avoids any loopholes, but it also allows those people who want to let go. Now, frankly, most of us will carry on to our last breath.
Yeah.
Those people in agony, we've got to give them that option, that right, that choice. It's their death, their body. Why can't they have that right to let go?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, indeed, this is Talk. Talking of being Talk, John is on the line from Burnley. Good morning, John.
Good morning, David. Great show.
Thank you very much. What's on your mind?
So, I just want to say, first of all, Dave, I'll just say I didn't vote Labour, and I haven't voted Labour in a long time. So, this is when you know Storm is in trouble. So the thing is, David, my sister's a mental health nurse, and she's an absolute full-on wet leftist. She's been up left for years, and so she's got 10 brothers.
Whoa.
Yeah, and we're all common sense, David. We don't want our mass migration. We don't want men in women's bathrooms. We don't want two-tier policing and all the rest of it. But my sister's been a full-on leftist. It's took us about 15 years to get her to see the light, David.
Right.
So she went out. She's that angry with Labour. She actually went out and voted Reform in local elections.
Wow, that is a change.
Yeah, so you know now when Stormer is in serious trouble when my sister's going out voting for Reform, because that's how angry she is.
So what was the initial? What was the biggest issue for her? What was it that made her vote for Reform?
Mass migration.
Yeah.
And because what's happening now, Dave, is now they're actually on her doorstep, and she's got obviously my niece's grandkids. And they're hanging around the school, around the area, and now she's actually like getting worried about it now. But what baffles me is like me and my brothers have been saying to her for years, she's a really clever woman. But I don't understand how she could not see through the lies of Labour. Like, we've seen it for years. Me and my brothers have been talking about it for years. The two-faced lies, constant lies all the time that they do. And we knew what they were going to be like.
But they weren't even clever lies, were they? So coming up to the general election, actually, they promised nothing. That was how they got in. And, of course, the biggest lie was not to increase taxes on working people and then promptly increases taxes.
Yeah. Do you know, the thing is, when I saw him stood up on that debate with Rishi,
yeah,
and I could see. I don't get how people could not see through the lies. And even Rishi warned everybody.
He did, to be fair.
He told them all, and they just won't listen, and we are where we are now. But, yeah, you know, he's just the most dishonest Prime Minister I think this country's ever seen.
And can I just ask you, you're in Burnley. Are you seeing a political change taking place in Burnley?
Yeah, it's massive, yeah, especially in Burnley, because it's a really Labour voting area. But yeah, it's completely changed now. Even all in my area, everyone I talk to now is all for Reform. They've all had enough of Labour. And these were people I used to argue before, saying, look, the proper full-on radical leftist party, they're just telling you lies. And now I think it were good for Labour to get in, for people to realise just how bad they are. I think the country.
Well, it's history repeating itself, as far as I can see.
I know, it's crackers, but we are where we are now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
But I'm thinking next 4 years, it's going to be a massive change. So
Yeah. Oh, really good to hear from you, John. Thank you for telling us all about your family history and also your sister as well. Changing her mind, finally. Lots more still to talk about. I'm asking this morning, is Keir Starmer actually having this reset with the European Union, actually undoing Brexit? And if he is, and he's going against the democratic right of the people, what the people told them in that referendum, then what does that say about the state of British politics? And what does it do in terms of the other political parties? The number 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at Talk TV. After the break, we're going to be talking about more of the big stories making all of the papers this morning. Don't go anywhere. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Five, four, three, two, one. Yay!
87222, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so into the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what... There's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning to you. Just after 7 o'clock on Saturday, May the 17th, I have returned from having yet another birthday. I don't know how many birthdays one can have, but I seem to have had a lot of them. Anyway, I'm back. Great to see you this morning, and great news this morning. It's World Fiddle Day, not World Fiddling Day, which Amy Fisher said earlier on. It's World Fiddle Day, a day created to honour the bowed string instrument made popular by Italian violin craftsman Antonio Stradivari. And whilst you're listening to that, it's also World Whiskey Day. It's an annual celebration to mark the rich heritage of this distilled spirit. It's made from fermented grains and known for its diverse flavour and aging process, rather like me. Yeah, I like a whiskey, actually. I'll tell you who else likes a whiskey. And Widdicombe likes a whiskey. Anyway, tonight, I don't know if I should have said that, tonight is also the final of Eurovision. Yes, tonight from 8 o'clock, 37 countries will be battling it out to become this year's Eurovision winner. And the competition, wait for this, is watched by 200 million people around the world. It is live tonight from Basel in Switzerland.
Good evening, Europe. Good morning, Australia.
Good morning, good evening. Yes, Eurovision, which kicks off today. Right, let's move on to this hour's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
Ooh, I'm loving these ones. On this day in 1749, Edward Jenner, of course, the English pioneer of vaccination, was born. On this day in 1836, Joseph Norman Lockyer, English astronomer and co-discoverer of helium, was born. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. Periodic table for you there, Amy. And on the... You're impressed, aren't you?
I was, actually.
Yeah.
I wondered how long you were going to keep going with that.
I could probably do a few more. On this day in 1861, this is really good, I like this, a group of holidaymakers set off from London on the first foreign package trip arranged by Thomas Cook.
Wow.
Yeah.
Genuinely surprised.
I know. It was a 6-day holiday in Paris. Cook began his pioneering tour business 20 years previously. He organised the first publicly advertised railway excursion from Leicester to a temperance meeting in Loughborough. Apparently, there is a statue of Thomas Cook outside Leicester railway station. And those are this hour's fascinating facts.
Weekend breakfast, feel alive and right with David Ball. Everything's just right.
Well, a very good morning to you. 5 minutes past 7 on Saturday, May the 17th. We've been talking about Eurovision Song Contest, and of course, the United Kingdom goes through because we're one of the big 5. That means, Amy, that we've paid for it, so we go through to the...
Jolly good.
Jolly good. Ours is rubbish. It's so annoying.
Is it a jingle?
I think it's called What the Hell Just Happened. That's what I thought when I heard it.
Oh, gosh, OK.
Yeah.
That sort of sounds a bit
it's
indicative.
3 girls with some melodic harmonies. It's not... Look...
It's not grabbing you.
Yeah, and Euro, if you're going to enter a song into the Eurovision Song Contest, it has to sort of pass the Europop test.
Well, yeah, and you sort of want it to be something that people are either happy to sort of belt out in the shower, or presumably go on the dance floor for, because that, you know, of what I do know about Eurovision, you know, one of the most popular was, you know, ABBA.
Yes, good.
And ABBA did both of those things, which is everybody knows the tunes, everybody sings it in the shower, at a, you know, wedding or whatever. As soon as ABBA goes on, everybody from, you know, 8 to 80 is on their feet. So, yes, I understand that that's the kind of elements that you would sort of want. It maybe sounds like, oh, entry this year is not quite that.
Not quite there. So we're not going to get any points. That's my prediction. Nil point. Nil point. However... You're very young, but I'm just looking back here. In 1967, Sandy Shaw, Puppet on a String.
Oh, yeah, good song,
yeah,
yes.
you see?
Cilla Black, didn't she have something as well?
Who?
Cilla Black, didn't she?
Ooh, she may well have done, but I will tell you, Lulu with Boom Bang a Bang.
Lulu, that's who I was
Lulu, that was when I was born, 69. Dana, which Spenno likes next door, All Kinds of Everything. That was 1970. ABBA, Waterloo, 74. Which was in Brighton. Brotherhood of Man, Save Your Kisses for Me. Yeah, that was another good song, actually. 1976.
Which was the one with Cheryl...
Bucks Fizz.
She took a skirt, they took their skirts
How can you not know that one?
Yeah, no, I did. It was on the tip of my tongue.
Bucks Fizz, Making a Mind Up, was in 1981. United Kingdom won in Dublin. I like Israel, Milk and Honey with Hallelujah, which was in 1979. We'll do some more of these in a minute. But anyway, Eurovision fever, because Eurovision Song Contest, the final... So back in the day, of course, there was only one Eurovision Song Contest. Now, of course, you've got to go through the finals, the semi-finals, and, you know, and obviously it's quite a big thing. And, of course, Europe has rather expanded in that time, shall we say. Let's just take you through this morning's papers, shall we? Because I was pretty incandescent this morning when I read these at 2 o'clock this morning. Front page of the Times, Starmer hails a Brexit reset. We've been talking about this pretty much all morning. Keir Starmer is obviously trying to wheedle his way back into the European community. He is hoping to sign a deal on Monday as part of a wider agreement with the European Union. There is going to be close alignment. I've heard all this before. Close alignment in terms of trade agriculture, security and defence, exactly what we voted to get rid of, but he thinks we aren't going to notice, and of course we're going to then have reciprocal standards with the rest of the EU, which was exactly the reason that we got out of the European Union, so we could strike trade deals around the world, like, for example, with the United States and with India, which we have now finally managed to do. Also, there is real concerns about this youth mobility scheme because no one believes that it will remain capped at 2 years. And Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, says that this plan will be a backdoor to the free movement of people that will be strongly opposed by Brexit voters. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative Party leader, says it will amount to an uncapped migration scheme. Also, The Guardian this morning reporting the same story. We were talking about this. Rachel Reeves has gone further. She's actually saying the UK is on a path to deeper EU relationship. Have they been deep frozen, these people, for some years?
No, it's really baffling that she, as you say, has gone even further than what's reported in others' papers, and talks about how she's saying, you know, what happens on Monday as a journey and it not being the end. And I mean, you know, we've been talking this morning about how terrifying it is he's moving in this direction at all, let alone it being some kind of first step in this journey that the Chancellor is talking about. So that was fairly, I mean, I think that was fairly grim, because one of your callers earlier actually said it. It's the fact that they're doing this is basically saying, is putting the metaphorical, frankly, two fingers up to anybody who did vote. Well, actually, it's not. It's sort of, you know, just disregarding how democracy works in this country. Like, this country voted, you know, a majority of people voted for Brexit, and the fact that this government just seems to think it can sort of ignore it, either because they just don't agree with it, or they think that people didn't understand what they were voting for, which is pretty insulting, by the way. Oh, no, we're actually going to go back to closer alignment because we understand that the country voted for Brexit, but you didn't quite understand. You didn't quite know what you were doing there. Is just, you know, which is where this morning, as your callers have been demonstrated, are very angry, and their ire has been very clear, understandably, to hear. So, no, The Guardian.
I mean, also, so she says this will be a decisive break with the ideological Brexit battles of the past.
This is a real problem for the government, this front page here. I mean,
but you see, the stupidity is she'll think this is great. She will.
But as we sort of mentioned earlier, you know, there will be some, and as soon as this paper, you know, was printed late last night, I should imagine there is a real scramble. You know, there would have been some frantic phone calls going on, not least, I assume, from the Prime Minister to his Chancellor, asking her what on earth kind of sort of bombshell she's just dropped here.
I mean, it does smack of my first government, the Fisher-Price version of my first government, isn't it?
It really is just a bit like, guys, did you not think this through a little bit?
I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary. Then, this is the front page of the Eye now. Winter fuel cut U-turn planned by Labour with secret talks. This is because they know it was catastrophic, and essentially they were consigning elderly people to die in cold, miserable homes, and now they think this might not be a great idea.
Oh, well, you know, that's an interesting realisation to come to, where, you know, you could have asked practically anybody before they even sort of landed this on the country last year that this was not going to go down well, and has uniquely united both the left and right as just, you know, sort of being a really, really bad idea, which now, you know, are they going to U-turn or not? I suspect they won't be a full U-turn, so they'll just create another muddle and a mess. Again, floundering is the word that we're seeing here. This is all just floundering around with no plan.
When you were head of comms for the Tory party, did you have meetings where you have a strategic direction and then you have a little tree and then you have things that come off the tree?
Exactly. Yes. Strategy and then tactics, right?
Yes, strategy and tactics.
You know, I'm not sort of rewriting the art of war or anything here. This is quite a sort of basic thing that you do. And as I say, this just seems to be really, it's just self-inflicted horrible policy decisions that then when they land horribly, which anyone could have foreseen they were going to, they're then scrambling, floundering around to try and sort of get themselves out of the mess of their own making, and frankly using these lines of, oh, we inherited this terribly difficult situation, awful black hole. Like, people just aren't buying it anymore.
There's another story I want to do actually in a bit about Morgan McSweeney and his role in all of this, and actually what he's saying and what Starmer's saying and what's going on behind the scenes. Let's move to the Mirror. This also, new hope on winter fuel. Keir Starmer last night left the door open to rethink on cuts to winter fuel payments. He refused to rule out making more people eligible. I mean, but the thing is, they're just tinkering around the edges. I don't think they actually... I mean, this is the other problem for me. They have no conviction. And it seems to me that he blows with the wind, and there is, if you are a principled politician, you know what drives you. It should be about fairness. It should be about whatever, you know, transparency, openness, making sure we build the country into a better place. I don't think he has any principles.
I agree, and this is where it's really biting, again, as evidenced by all of your callers today. His sort of flim-flammery, his willingness to just kind of go from one position to another without sort of any particular, driven by any particular principled thought, means that now, and it's a word that's come up several times tonight, people are now saying he's lied, I don't trust him, they're lying, the government are liars. And trust is that sort of very ephemeral thing in politics. Once you have lost it, it is gone. It is pretty much impossible to get it back, and that is, you know, a refrain, as I say, that has come through very strongly this morning. It was a thing that did for Tony Blair in the end, if we remember. People just didn't believe anything that came out of his
mouth. So
early.
And
as I say, I think in terms of that trust and breaking a kind of contract with the people who voted for you, once you have done that, I think it is all but irreconcilable. Irretrievable.
I think they're in big trouble. Daily Express, this, finally some sense. Door opens on fuel pay turn. Again, the same story there, but with different headline. And then we talked about this earlier. This is the Daily Telegraph, the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Hands off ISAs, banks tell Reeves. So she's trying to get it down from the tax-free ISA allowance of $20,000, where people squirrel money away quite wisely, so they have some money for a rainy day. She wants that to go down to $4,000, so you then go into riskier stocks and shares. Well, I should think that's going to be met with a cold bucket of sick. And this is quite interesting. The FT this morning, a Zempic maker, and of course we've talked a lot about these fat jabs. Novo Nordisk, which made or does make Zempic, have fired their chief executive, Lars Fruergaard Johansson. Apparently this is because of profit growth declining, the market share declining, and a plunging stock price. And that's because basically there are loads of drugs now available, and of course they found that some of the other drugs are better than their drug, and they kicked him off the board.
What's really scary about all these drugs is it sort of, you know, became the wonder miracle thing. Suddenly you can be all slimline and svelte, and you know, you saw all these celebrities literally halving in you know, sort of waistline. I just think they're all really scary, because I don't think we particularly understand some of the side effects, which occasionally, you know, you are sort of saying, oh, my, you know, hair loss apparently can be one, and sort of what it does to the elasticity or skin. I mean, I just think they're all a bit, you know, anything that in life, anything that seems too good to be true probably is. And I think these kind of wonder thin drugs are sort of falling into that category.
And also I was reading about people who come off these drugs and then rebound in terms of the weight gain.
Well,
so
yes.
How long do you have to be on them for then?
Well, exactly. It depends what kind of bandwagon. I just don't.
And all drugs have side effects. It is worth saying.
Well,
all
I mean,
drugs.
you're a doctor, so obviously you know better than me. But what happened to sort of good old-fashioned do some exercise and eat pretty sensibly?
Well, that's a very good point. And actually, just looking back to the war, the ration books actually gave people very good nutritional intake, and of course you didn't see fat people, did you?
Well, that's why I was reading an article actually in the week about why people were, you know, so much slimmer. Because if you look at how women's dress sizes in particular don't compare.
No.
And some of it is to do with getting taller and better nutrition, but a lot of it was sort of saying the way, you know, people needed to eat pretty much because of rationing meant that, you know, in the 50s and 60s we didn't really have an awful lot of sort of fat people because they weren't eating a lot of processed sugar, they weren't, you know, kind of drinking a lot and all of this kind of thing.
This is the front page of the Daily Mail. Wait for this, another great piece of news for you if you are just waking up. Parking fines could rocket. by 75%. Honestly, it's absolutely ridiculous. Drivers face a hike of up to 75% in parking fines, which will see them treated more harshly than shoplifters. Oh, yeah, that's fair, isn't it? Apparently, they're reviewing the cap on tickets issued by town halls in England and Wales. So the fine could go from £70 to more than £120 for local authorities outside London. This is a war on drivers. Do you know? And sometimes it really annoys me. You go somewhere in the middle of where I live in Suffolk, right? And there's a board telling you how to pay, and you can pay on Ringo or another Just Park or one of these other apps. There's no phone signal. How are you meant to pay? And then, if you are in your 70s or 80s and you're not very good with
That's
IT,
not something you...
then how are you meant to pay? And then you get a walloping 70 quid fine on your car. It's not acceptable.
No, I mean, I think the unfairness of this that the Daily Mail is pointing out is, you know, more harshly than shoplifters. I mean, just come on, skewed priorities and all the rest of it.
Well, that's because they want money for potholes.
Well, yeah, well, it made me smile, Riley, because in one of the other papers, there's also a story about a bunch of freedom of information requests that have been put into various town halls. There's all these sort of London ones that are putting up all these ULEZ and no driving zones and no parking zones and all this kind of thing. They're the ones spending tens of thousands of pounds on cabs for their staff.
Yeah, of course they are.
I mean, it's sort of what...
Oh, there's another story as well this morning I read that some group wants country roads to have a maximum speed limit of 20 miles an hour.
Well, have these people ever been to a country road?
No, well, I was going to say...
That's what we were saying.
Have you ever been into...
Policy being made in a...
from my house to Norwich is all country roads. If I went at 20 miles an hour, it would take a week.
100 years to get there. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. Front page of The Sun, Chris Brown held in UK custody on GBH charge before his £50 million tour. Banged up is the headline there. Do you know who Chris Brown is?
I couldn't name a single song, but only because a few years ago he was in the headlines for, I believe, allegedly, or I can't remember if it's proved, for assaulting Rihanna.
That's right, ex of
That's
Rihanna.
literally the only reason why he's crossed.
You're down with the kids, you are.
Oh, I think I proved that with my Eurovision knowledge.
I think you did, actually, yes. And then, well, I rather like this. Daily Star never fails, the Daily Star. 3 o'clock is beer o'clock, according to this. Cheers for beers. Pub bosses want a 3 p.m. beer garden break law. Crikey, can you imagine the people in this company? They'll be out the door, 2:59, boom.
So I love this story.
Yeah.
But...
So basically, they want it when the temperature hits 20 degrees, by law, you have to go to the pub.
But I don't know who... I love this idea, but given that we know that pubs are closing at kind of the rate of knots, and that was a trend that predated COVID, and also just, you know, younger people tend not to sort of really drink these days. As much as I like this idea, I'm not sure how much demand there'd actually be for it. Also, 20 degrees probably is a little low.
No, it isn't.
Oh, goodness, it's been 20 degrees practically every day.
That's the point I'm making.
OK, fine. No.
Fire out the barbecue. Britain is set to be hotter than Ibiza and Corfu this weekend. All right. And get my Speedos out, Amy.
Good.
Yeah. The mercury is tipped to go to 23 degrees. She took that in her stride. Completely took that in your stride. East Anglia, though, where I am, expected to be mid-teens. That's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Anyway, so actually... what they're saying here is sack off work to save the boozer. So, here we go. We're going to regenerate. This is now in policy, my policy. We're going to regenerate local boozers by making people go to the pub. It's compulsory to go to the pub.
100% with you. I'm very happy to be your first signee for that.
Perfect. Keep all your messages coming in. Oh, Pam, Travis, thanks very much for this. David, my daughter thinks the UK will win Eurovision. No, it's rubbish. It's rubbish.
I'm admiring her positivity.
I am too. Spain is my favourite.
Okay.
I think that's very good. I don't know what else you think might win. Peter, good morning, David. On World Fiddling Day, I think it was World Fiddle Day, but anyway.
Yeah, sorry, everybody.
Starmer's fiddling whilst Britain burns. Very apt, I think. That's Peter. Carol in Shoreham by Sea, one of our regulars. Good morning, Carol. Hi, Dr. David. I hope you had a lovely birthday break, but you were really missed. That's nice. And so pleased for your return. If you, as you mentioned, this unwanted so-called reset is proven to be against the will of the people in relation to Brexit, do we have any recourse? Do we have anything we can actually do to stop this shambles of a government further ruining our country? Membership of Reform is now over 233,000 people. That's extraordinary. Have a great day, Carol. Hope you have a great day too. This is interesting. Ellie from Swindon, good morning to you. Good morning, Dr. David. A couple of years ago, Starmer was caught off camera saying if he ever became Prime Minister, he would take us as close as he could back to the EU, and he is now doing exactly that. What people voted for liars like this bunch, I don't know. The writing was on the wall. Great show, Ellie. Thank you for that. I don't think that's quite clear, quite fair, actually. I think they did a great job of hiding what they were going to do.
Yeah, but it's the word liar, lying liar has come up yet again. And look, maybe this is going to be the one thing that Keir Starmer said he was going to do, and that he actually now is, just albeit didn't tell anybody else at the time during the general election.
Well, I've got another one with liars. Nigel Brown, good morning to you. Good morning, Dr. David. Starmer's lies are following Tory lies and bad policy. I don't understand why both these parties aren't doing something about it. I mean, the leaders, not just the leaders, but the parties, unless the agenda from both is complete political change, as that is what is coming. It'll blatantly be a completely different Parliament for generations to come, completely different for generations to come, off what you've actually understood has been going on over the last few years. They will write books about the catastrophe of the leading parties of British politics over the past 20 years as a warning never to go there again. And one more, Pat. Dr. David, reform haven't even started yet. They will take every county in our country and Wales for one single reason: reform loves our country. Keep all those messages coming in, please. We have so much more still to talk about. I want to talk about Chinese kill switches found in US solar farms. I want to talk about the Chinese. They could actually stop our traffic lights, and they could stop your car actually working. And then I want to talk about Keir Starmer and how well his immigration return hubs are going. We'll talk about that after this break. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
There's been some studies actually to assess each country's suitability for solar power, and we are, if not the very bottom, we are actually the second bottom. There is only one country in the world that's worse than the UK for solar power, and that's Ireland. So yeah, it's pretty poor in the UK. The issue is that, of course, you can get these solar panels really quite cheaply now because they're made by slave labour in China.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk. Amy Fisher joins me this morning, former comms chief of the Conservative Party, and she's absolutely horrified at what Labour is doing. And the fact is they don't... Maybe you could get a job there. I mean, they clearly need a comms director.
I'm not quite sure my political views align with theirs, but...
Do they have any?
Well, I think we've just been discussing. It's not entirely clear what they are on the basis of today's papers.
Now, I want to talk about Mad Ed Miliband, who is obsessed with net zero at all costs, and then he keeps prancing around doing these videos showing us how lovely his solar panels are, which aren't actually made in this country, they're made in China. Yes. Anyway, this is a really important story. Chinese kill switches have been found hidden in America's solar farms, prompting calls for Miliband to halt the rollout of renewables. The Energy Secretary was urged to impose shows an immediate pause on the green energy blitz. So essentially, in the US, they found radios capable of switching off the solar panels, embedded by the makers of those panels that had come from China. It is something we've been warning about for a very long time, isn't it? We saw it with Huawei, we saw it with the infrastructure, we saw it with the mobile phone operators. What idiot would allow a hostile state to provide energy infrastructure to this country? Oh, I know, the Labour government.
Well, this is the thing, because, you know, China is literally a hostile state. It's not somebody that we may have some reservations about, but we're trying to sort of, you know, be on diplomatic terms with, etc., etc. And yes, this is just another latest example of Chinese influence, hold over infrastructure. And indeed, that was, as you say, why Huawei was not allowed into the 5G network, because it would have literally, it wasn't even a back door that would have allowed. It would have been a big welcome, kind of welcome mat of here, embed yourselves so fundamentally in national critical infrastructure that you can literally hold us to ransom and you know, kill switches or Chinese technology being embedded in any of our energy infrastructure, you know, would be no less dangerous than a communications network. So there are so many problems with Miliband's, you know, green agenda, the cost of it, the insecurity of it, the planning implications. I mean, just none of it is very well thought out. And I'm sorry, but, you know,
not thought out.
Not thought out. You know, Ed Miliband, he just seems to have the anti-Midas touch of sort of, you know, I'm sure the guy is quite well-meaning as a human being, but just I'm not sure that politically he's ever been somebody that I would want to be specifically responsible for things as important as critical national infrastructure.
The China makes more than half of the solar power inverters in the world, okay? More than 200 gigawatts of European solar power capacity relies on the inverters made by China. And let's just put that, so that's 200, let's park the 200. Now, 2 gigawatts was what happened in Spain and Portugal and plunged those countries into abject darkness.
Yes, exactly.
You then need to think, hang on a minute, we are massively over-reliant on Chinese technology. Dangerously. It needs to be removed immediately.
So, look, the government is currently doing a review of Chinese technology in the UK, and one can only hope they come to some sort of sensible decision about it. Otherwise, we are so exposed. I mean, look, haven't we just seen this recently with, OK, so it was by a hacking group, apparently not by a hostile state. But, you know, but what happened to supply chains with the co-op?
Yeah.
You know, my local sort of biggest supermarket is actually a co-op.
So's mine.
And when that sort of happened, I mean, it was Armageddon. Like, there was not a single piece of fresh...
No sausage rolls.
There was not a single... There wasn't even any fresh fruit or vegetables of any description. I'm not talking about, you know, stocks being a bit low for a few days. I'm talking about the shop being half empty for several days of basic food products. So, you know, it's very scary how very quickly we can be held to ransom in our, you know, literally daily lives by technology where we have been left vulnerable, either, as I say, in that case, the co-op said it was, you know, sort of hackers. In this case, we're talking about, you know, Chinese hostile state. But yeah, it really is very frightening. So, you know, whenever this review is due to conclude that the government is doing, I mean, surely one can see that there is only one sensible outcome, which is, you know, not to let them have a toehold. And if that means delaying Miliband's project, then so be it.
100% agree. It gets worse. This is in the Times. China can switch off our traffic lights and immobilise London because the companies control so much crucial technology in the UK. This isn't just some dodgy blow. This is Sir Richard Dearlove, the former head of MI6, and Charles Barton, a veteran diplomat, said that because China dominates the industry of microchips, they're embedded in everything, which is called the Internet of Things. Everything in your kitchen can talk to each other. I mean, it is quite frightening that your fridge knows, you know, your fridge knows what's in the fridge.
No, I was having my kitchen redone sort of 3 or 4 years ago, and I was looking, and I did not want the kind of speaky surveilling fridge.
Don't you?
No.
I quite like that.
I get scared by Alexa, so...
She scares me, actually.
No, I was once at a friend's house, and and she knows I'm a bit of a technophobe, and she was like, this was a few years ago, so Alexa was quite she says, no, it's really cool, just say to Alexa, play some Madonna or something. So I literally said, Alexa, please play Madonna, and Alexa literally went, I don't like the sound of your voice. I mean, what that says for your poor radio listeners this morning, I don't know. But but it was literally like, I don't like the sound of your voice. My friend sort of tried to reassure me that maybe she didn't quite because I was a new voice. And I was just like, no, I'm sorry, I've just been told to shut up by your weird, creepy...
But this is a sci-fi film, isn't it? When the robot answers back, when the robot says no.
Did you see this terrifying story? Was it sort of within the last week about how sort of leaked footage from a robot factory in China? Like one of the robots is like trying to get independently has sort of woken itself up and is trying to attack the factory worker, and it's only when like 2 or 3 other workers come over there sort of able to get it back in its kind of crane hoist. I mean, whatever glitch in the Matrix that is, that's literally the start of the Terminator film.
Yes. Or it goes back to Blake 7, it goes back to Doctor Who, it goes back to all those things I grew up watching, and then suddenly the robots have sentience, don't they?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, also, it goes on to say that anything here, the Internet of Things, he basically says you've got to be very careful about where these products are made. Now, it's quite interesting, this, because obviously Tesla's been another company in all of the news, and some of those Tesla cars are made in China with Chinese chips embedded in them. And it doesn't take a genius to work out. So I drive one of these, and the car sometimes decides it's not going to do what I want it to do, and it will stop, and it will pull over, and it will do whatever.
Those stories are now not unusual about the doors just not opening, or, as you said, just not doing...
Doesn't want to work.
Which obviously there are wild safety implications there, but also like the car is just messing around with the car is just the tech is basically just demonstrating to you at that point that you're not in control.
You're not in control.
And that's really
But
very...
also, it can then decide, like my brother's at the moment, isn't charging. It just doesn't want to charge.
I mean, what do you do with that? Like, literally flip a switch on and off or something, like I do with my laptop when it doesn't quite work?
Well,
you just sort of turn it on and off?
Well, you can do a technical reboot of the car, but it's still not working. But anyway. And then also, you see, he goes on to say, this is Richard Dearlove, goes on, and Parton goes on to say, that this also includes routers, financial terminals, so... You know, and actually, listening to older people who say to me all the time, you need to keep cash. You need to keep cash, because it doesn't take a great cyber hack, does it, for you to have no money suddenly?
No, I have to admit I always do keep cash in my a bit in my wallet, and certainly a bit. Sadly, not a gold bar. Although I'm not quite sure what I'd do with a gold bar. I'm just going to sort of like tout it. And
I know people who've buried theirs.
I'm not surprised. I'm actually not that mocking of it.
I have a very small gold bar. Very, very small.
No, but in all of this, the common theme is how very, very quickly something reliant on tech, which be it traffic lights or solar panels or the banking system or, transport, whatever it is, somebody very quickly can make life incredibly difficult for, thousands, if not sort of millions of people.
Yeah. Very quickly, I just want to tell you about this. It's so brilliant. Air traffic controllers, they use these names for various location points. 280,000 aviation GPS waypoints. They have a 5 LNC attached to it. So these are 5-letter codes, basically, 5-letter name codes. So because everything is so woke now, they're having to rename some of them because they're a bit naughty. So I think when they did the UK markers, someone was having a bit of a laugh when they did it. They are potentially offensive route names. So the air traffic controllers use these terms to tell planes where they're going. So they're getting rid of pikey, utiti and rat poo, because they're deemed to be offensive.
I mean, come on, can we not just...
I mean, I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, utiti is...
Utiti is funny.
Sort of... it just come on, rice oil.
You say to an A380, you must follow rat poo. Funny.
Well, yes, exactly. Let's just have a wry smile about it. We're British, for goodness sake.
Exactly. Others include Ocknob, utiti rat poo, Copspur, and as they say, it's a lot of puerile schoolboy humour. There's also shark, oyster and perch, hardy bembo and hawk. I just worry...
What's the matter with any of them?
Well, I just worry that if they start renaming it, everyone's going to get confused, because everyone knows where rat poo is.
Well, there's also that. I mean, that's a logistical sort of consideration, one would hope.
Well, one would hope. Yes. Where is rat poo and where's utiti? These are big
questions
of
of our
the day.
time, yes.
Yeah, questions of our time.
But I also know that I'm going to be Googling it on the train home.
Yes, I want to know where your titty is. Right, we'll go to a break. After the break, we're going to get all the latest news from the United States with Caroline Faraday, our broadcaster and journalist extraordinaire, joining us live from LA. That's all still to come. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk. I've just managed to remove my screen. Amy, this is Yvonne. I love your voice, Amy. I love your name.
Thank you so much.
There you are, you see. I don't like your name. I have a daughter called Amy as well. That's Yvonne. Thank you, Yvonne.
Excellent choice.
Excellent choice. Well, David, what do you think will happen in the UK when China switches off our electricity power? Well, it won't look like the power cut in Spain and Portugal the other day. There will be looting and chaos within hours. The country is going to burn. And that is exactly the point. You need UK energy sources, and that means SMRs, making sure that we build those nuclear reactors, also making sure that we frack, we have cheap energy, and that allows business to prosper, and then pubs stay open. It all comes back to the pub.
All roads end in the pub. Yeah. I agree, but that's why as you just put the potential for civil disorder. I agree is certainly there. I mean, we actually saw how quickly things can spiral over during the riots. Well, we've had lots of riots in the last 10 or so years, and it's just. I actually thought about this the other day when I was sort of upgrading to full fibre broadband. Ooh. Yeah, I was delighted with this until I was sort of told, but you don't get a landline anymore.
You don't? No, they're taking your copper line away.
And that's actually quite frightening, which then sort of got me actually thinking in the context of the riots about sort of the communication systems used by the police or any of the emergency services. So a lot of them, do actually keep old tech, and I'm talking like 20-year-old tech, sort of, radios, because there is an awareness that the new kit, as zhizzy and shiny and useful as all of it can be, actually is very vulnerable, and it's the older stuff that is widely thought of to be more reliable.
So when I lived in LA, and we'll talk to Caroline in a minute, I had a wind-up radio, wind-up torches, I had water, I had enough water for about many weeks actually, but a lot of water that was, which we'll go to in a minute. Just very quickly, good morning, David. Going down the pub at 3 p.m. Here's an idea. What the pubs need to do is drop the prices. Normal working people can't afford £6.50 to £7.50 a pint. I agree. That's half the problem. That's why pubs are empty. I agree, but also the pubs have got to pay the staff now because of employer national insurance contributions. They've got to pay the energy bills. So actually, if you have cheap energy, then your beer gets cheaper. Anyway, it's now time for Transatlantic Talk.
Transatlantic Talk with Caroline Faraday.
Yeah, Caroline Faraday.
Oh, the yeehaws are back because you're back.
Hey, yes. Now, this is true, isn't it? About making sure when you live in La La Land, as you do, you've got an electric wind-up torch and you've got some water and stuff like that for an earthquake or whatever.
Yep, emergency preparedness kits.
That's it.
And it is, because we could have an earthquake. I'm always encouraged to have, and I do have a kind of box of things I could grab and like a list of what I would grab. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see?
Emergency preparedness kit.
Yeah.
Gotta have it.
I had a big bucket and then I had those great big protein bar things, which was 2,400 calories. That's a whole day that you just ate in a bar.
That'll keep you going. I mean, you could just do that with a couple of dairy milks, couldn't you?
Yeah, and a vodka. I mean, or any other drink. Let's move on. There's a lot going on in the States, isn't there? Mr. Trump has certainly hit the ground running.
Wouldn't you love to see the conversation if your Prime Minister suddenly was like, I'm just getting a jet from Qatar, this will be fine. No problems, don't worry about it.
Oh.
So that's what's happened this week. Donald Trump has been to the Middle East. It had kind of this spectacular fanfare. He went to Saudi Arabia, he went to Qatar, or Qatar, as they call it here.
Do they?
And the United... Yeah, it's really weird. Anyway.
Qatar?
Qatar.
All right.
I think they just have gone with, we don't really know how to say it, so we're going to commit to this version. So they all go Qatar. And United Arab Emirates as well. So they did this 4-day visit. In fact, I just watched him land back on the tarmac in DC on the old Air Force One, but he's been given, although it has not yet emerged, a jet from the Qataris. And it's interesting, isn't it, the conversation that you're having about the solar panels and the switches in the solar panels, of course, security concerns that are a really big part of the concerns about the Qataris giving Trump, apart from the ethical concerns of what is clearly a bribe being given to the President of the United States, that that they would essentially have to strip the whole thing back and be sure of what's there and what's not, because Air Force One obviously has all sorts of secret things happening.
And so is this, just to be clear, this is not a new jet that would be built. This isn't a repurposed jet, is it?
No, and stranger than that, there are actually 2 new Air Force Ones in the process of being built that are slightly late in being delivered. I think they're due next year to be delivered. And so the one that they've got now, Trump keeps moaning about being too old. I mean, isn't it a problem that we've all got?
It's a major problem I have on a daily basis.
Our massive great jet is just too old.
Now, it is true, isn't it? There are 2 Air Force Ones and they fly at the same time so that one is a decoy.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
I think it's great.
We're just busy recycling our newspapers, hoping for the best for the environment, but sure.
Well, I mean, it is quite important that the president is safe.
Yeah. It is, and that is really one of the big concerns with getting a jet from Qatar. But obviously the other concern is it's worth quite a lot of money, and therefore it looks quite a lot like a bribe. But don't worry, because the Attorney General Pam Bondi, who by complete coincidence and nothing to do with it used to be a lobbyist for Qatar, has said that it's fine.
Right. So also, just the Middle East seems to hold a lot of promise for Trump here. So just in terms of these deals, Qatar and the US, this 1.2 trillion economic exchange, Saudi investing 600 billion US dollars in the US as well. I mean, is this the beginning of a new relationship in the Middle East?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. They've made it really, really clear that those Gulf states want to be first in line, that they want to be partnering with the US, whether that is business, whether that's military, whether that's in tech. They want to be first in line. And clearly that partnership was being heralded. I don't know if you saw any of the exchanges, but it was all this kind of, I mean, it's all very lavish and very grand. There's the camels.
Yes, we love the camels.
Donald Trump got out and said, I love the camels. I haven't seen camels like that in a long time.
Well, who has? I mean, quite frankly.
No.
I mean, it is an amazing sight, this. And, I mean, just in terms of world peace, what's the view over there from political commentators?
Well, in terms of world peace, I mean, it is controversial. Obviously, there are links between Qatar and Hamas, and that is of concern, and there are concerns about those links. Those seem to have been brushed aside in the name of business, for sure. And the same, obviously, when you see images of Donald Trump with the Saudis, of course, considering that an American journalist, Khashoggi, was killed by the Saudi regime. I think some people found that a little bit distasteful. But obviously they're talking about big amounts of money and billions and trillions of dollars. How much of that will transpire? I think it's one of those things where they're talking really big numbers, and perhaps it will end up being a fraction of that in reality. But certainly the intention is there to work together as partners in right the way across the board.
Let's move on and talk about this trial of Diddy.
Yeah, look, this is all a bit grim, isn't it, for Across Your Cornflakes in the morning, so I'll try and be as tactful as I can, but P. Diddy's trial is underway. He is up for criminal charges of racketeering, of sex trafficking, of transportation to engage in prostitution, and I should say that he denies all of those charges. His ex-partner, Cassie Ventura, who is well over 8 months pregnant, has been on the stand and giving some very graphic evidence over a couple of days about some of the parties and what went on at the parties that P. Diddy held, and about how she felt about taking part in those parties. And it really has sparked a debate about consent and what consent means. Obviously, the defence team want to say, well, hold on, you consented to being there, and that has really opened that debate about free consent or coercion into consent and what that consent means. And that will really come down to what the verdict kind of hinges on, what the jury make of that at the end of this trial. But at the moment, the jury are having to sit through some pretty graphic, pretty unpleasant evidence that's being presented to them, some of which is so unpleasant or graphic in detail that it's not even being shown to the entire courtroom. It's being shown purely to the jury so that they can go about making their decision. But yeah, it's pretty grim all round. Let's put it that way. He could go to jail for a long time, or if he's found guilty.
And do we have a sense of a timeline on that?
No, I would think a couple of weeks. She's finished giving her evidence, and it's really a question of whether or not we'll see some more high profile. But she really was the sort of star witness. Cassie Ventura, remember that video of P. Diddy where he was beating her? That's her that he was beating up outside the elevator. Just to put it in context, and she met him when she was very young. She actually had some music out of her own, and then ended up in this situation.
Wow, Caroline, thanks ever so much. Always good to see you. Caroline Faraday, that was today's Transatlantic Talk.
Transatlantic Talk with Caroline Faraday.
Lots of messages. Good morning, David. This is Ray in Liverpool. What happened to the 1p off a pint of beer that Rachel Reeves announced in the budget? That made a huge difference, didn't it? Yeah, well said, Ray. Good morning, David. Sylvia in Monmouth. I just want to say you look lovely this morning. Your shirt is just like my Egyptian cotton duvet cover. Perfect. Thank you very much. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
This is a tried and tested method. It's been working, it's regulated, it's monitored. There are different systems elsewhere in the world. We're not doing that, we're doing the Oregon model, and also we're making it the British model, and that's what's important about today. MPs saying, this is our template, how can we make it as good as possible? So yes, it avoids any loopholes, but it also allows those people who want to let go. Now frankly, most of us will carry on to our last breath. Yeah. those people in agony, we've got to give them that option, that right, that choice. It's their death, their body. Why can't they have that right to let go?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Weekend Breakfast, 7:53. Anna from Sweden here. Sweden. Hello, Anna in Sweden. Now, about Eurovision, David, what are your thoughts on the Swedish-Finnish Kaj? I have to say I think they're quite good. I think it stands a chance. I like Made in Switzerland, but that's not even an entry. But you'll know what I'm talking about if you've actually seen any of the Eurovision. I think I better stop talking now. It's time for Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Hello, Tom.
Thank you. I was going to say thank you for not doing the accent.
I did the accent.
But you did the accent.
Yeah. Eurovision. Are you a fan?
Next question.
Right, okay, fine. FA Cup final?
FA Cup final. I am definitely a fan of that.
Good, yeah.
Crystal Palace against Manchester City.
That's my dad's team, actually.
What, Palace?
Yeah.
Yeah, going for an historic first ever major trophy.
I'm glad you said
today.
an historic.
It's because it's the correct way to say it.
I know.
Yeah.
Many people get that wrong.
Yeah, well, this is what, I get lots of other things wrong, but I try and get my grammar
That's
right.
why you're at the top of your tree.
Top, yeah, sure. But anyway, so Crystal Palace looking for their first ever major trophy, having not won anything before. They've been in the FA Cup final on 2 occasions prior to today, and they've come very, very close in the past. But this feels different for them. This feels like there's an element of luck, there's an element of getting things right on the day, but this Palace team feel like they're very well set up, they're very well kind of positioned to go toe-to-toe with the Goliath that is Manchester City, who've had a bit of a poor season by their standards, but they've still made the FA Cup final, which, is nothing to be sniffed at.
Who's going to win? Manchester.
Both my heart and my head today are agreeing for once and saying Crystal Palace.
No!
I think Palace are going to win.
Oh, that'd be marvellous.
I was just chatting to producer Dean out there, and we reckon 2-1.
Producer Dean, I wouldn't take any tips from him.
Yeah. So in that case, put all of your money on Man City. No,
he knows where the pubs are, though. All right, let's move on to Everton. They're saying goodbye to their stadium.
They are this weekend. It's the final time Everton's men's team will play at Goodison Park, which is named the Grand Old Lady. It's been in service for over 120 years, and they've moved in.
It's synonymous with Saturday tea time, isn't it?
It's massive, yeah. And they're moving into this very shiny new stadium at Bramley Moor Dock, and the new stadium is very nice, and it's going to help bring the club into more major events. So say, for example, one of the Euros games is going to be hosted there in 2028. It's going to be open to events and gigs and things like that for the future, where Goodison Park didn't really have that ability. It's a fantastic stadium, but it is a bit old. It's getting on. The good news is it's going to be used by the women's team, so it's not going to be completely demolished. So it's going to remain a football stadium, and the club will still retain use of it as well.
Oh, brilliant. OK. And finally, latest in the PGA Championship golf.
Absolutely. And Rory McIlroy had made a terrible start on Thursday. He was 3 over par, and he needed to get himself 2 shots back to try and even make the cut for the weekend. He did. He just about managed it. He very nearly didn't manage it, but he pulled it around, and he's now only a mere 9 shots off the lead, which is some kind of undertaking. He sits at 1 over par, and he's 9 shots behind the leader, who goes by the name Johnny Vegas. It's not that one, don't worry.
Oh, isn't it? All right.
No, he's not turned into a golfer. But no, he's doing all right, it's Rory. Good news, English golfer Matt Fitzpatrick is 2 shots off the lead, so a bit of a chance of British hope there.
Fantastic. Tom, always good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. I won't do the accent. That was Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
Tom Clayton's Sporting Weekend.
This is interesting, Amy. Steve says most NHS departments still have fax machines so they can operate in the event of a tech failure. Fax machines?
Isn't there... I remember there's always a story about the fax machine comes up because every couple of years somebody
Finds
puts
one.
in or sort of finds one, and so technically they are all there as some kind of contingency for data breaches.
What, if you can find any paper?
But no one knows the numbers anymore.
No.
So I don't doubt that sort of fax machines exist in the NHS, but whether you'd actually be able to use them, I think, is very much a separate question.
OK, very quickly, because I know you have to leave us. Warwick in Devon says, good morning, Dr David and Amy. Dr David, great show, thank you very much. Surely the time has come, Amy, for Keith Starlin to be certified as insane, as his barking madness cannot continue. Comment.
I agree that sort of almost all of what the Labour government are currently doing can't continue. They've got to get themselves together because, all the reactions from your audience today have certainly indicated the British public does not seem to have a great deal of confidence in them.
That's an understatement.
Going for the classic British understatement there and letting the listeners speak
but you're
for
right.
themselves.
So Peter here says, hello again, David. Starmer's bunch of amateurs are ignoring the Brexit vote, just as they're ignoring the millions that voted Reform and why they voted Reform. And they are just well, they're sort of... Actually, that's not entirely true, is it? Because he then did the volte-face on immigration and then talked about islands of strangers.
Well, look, is it incompetence? Is it being amateurish? I mean, this is my point about however you're interpreting it, the net results is what the Labour government is doing does not either seem to be part of a principal plan nor, in fact, be something that anybody, the vast ways of the public actually want, including from people who voted for them. The Labour government's got a real headache this weekend on a number of fronts.
Every weekend, I would
Well,
suggest.
it's not every weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, this one particularly with the Europe negotiation seems to be quite a pinch point this weekend.
Oh, it'll be fascinating to catch up, actually, at the end of this and see what they actually sign up to. Amy, thank you so much for coming in. It's been lovely to see you, as ever. Keep all your messages coming in, please. I'm asking today, is Keir Starmer undoing Brexit? If he is he defying the British people and what the British people actually voted for? And what does that say about the state of British politics? And what happens next? Let me know your thoughts on all of that. After the break, I'm going to be talking more about assisted dying.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, too. I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, says no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Just after 8 o'clock now on Saturday, May the 17th. I'm David Bull, and yes, I am back after celebrating my birthday. Great news because I'm another year older, and great news this morning for you too because it's World Fiddle Day today, a day created to honour the bowed string instrument, made popular by Italian violin craftsman Antonio Stradivari. And whilst you're listening to that, you can have some whiskey because today is World Whiskey Day, an annual celebration to mark the rich heritage of this distilled spirit. It's made from fermented grains and it's known for its diverse flavour and ageing process. And, of course, very excited about this, although I'll be in bed. Tonight is the final of Eurovision. Tonight from 8 o'clock, 37 countries will be battling it out to become this year's Eurovision winner. The competition is watched by 200 million people worldwide. It is live from Basel in Switzerland.
Good evening, Europe. Good morning, Australia.
Let's move on to this hour's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
Right, some new ones for you. On this day in 1899, Queen Victoria laid the foundation stone of the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Woo, talking about politics, on this day in 1915, the fall of the last all-Liberal Party government. The poor British performance in the early months of the war forced Prime Minister Herbert Henry Asquith to invite the Conservatives into a coalition. And on this day... This is amazing. On this day in 1916, the Daylight Saving Act, or summertime, was passed in Britain, and those are this hour's fascinating facts.
Waking up to the sound of the beat, David Bull on the radio can't be beat. From 6 to 10, life feels complete.
Feels complete indeed. Good morning, 8 o'clock already on Saturday, May the 17th. Now, if you're a Brexiteer, if you believe in democracy, if you voted for us to leave the European Union, then you are going to be spitting over your cornflakes this morning because the front page of the Times, Starmer hails a Brexit reset. Yes, you heard that correctly. Keir Starmer is cozying back up to the European Union. He talks about the fact we're going to sign a big deal with the European Union on Monday. Wait for this. This deal will bring Britain into the closest alignment with the EU since Brexit. It will cover trade, agriculture, security and defence. What? This means there'll be a supranational body which will oversee this. This is not Brexit. So I do not understand what Keir Starmer is actually trying to achieve here. He also talks about a youth mobility scheme allowing young people from Europe to come into this country. He says, oh, this is not actually freedom of movement. No, no, no. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, says this is a backdoor to free movement of people that will be strongly opposed by Brexit voters. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative Party leader, says it will lead to uncapped migration scheme. Also, then the front page of The Guardian, Rachel Reeves has gone even further. UK on path to deeper EU relationship, says Rachel Reeves. Does no one in that party actually understand anything about policy and what the country has voted for? She says we're going to have a decisive break with ideological Brexit battles of the past. She says, no, we're not joining the customs union or the single market. We're not having a return to free movement. I say, Rachel, I don't believe you. Your thoughts, please, on all of that. Is Keir Starmer undoing Brexit? If he is he defying voters? And also, let's face it, if he does do that and he's not listening to the public, then what does that mean for the other political parties? When you look at the latest polling, Reform UK, 12-point lead ahead of Labour, which is quite something. What does it mean in terms of what happens next? 0344 499 1000. Those calls charged at the national rate. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at talkTV. So many messages coming in on this. David, this is Tony, good morning, on the money as usual. When will Labour and indeed the Tories understand that ignoring what people want, what people vote for and have voted for is a recipe for their demise? A recipe that will lead to Reform being the party they now all fear. If the main parties don't wake up, or more accurately, stop the arrogance and listen, Reform will hold the balance of power at the next general election. Annie, good morning to you. Annie says, I'm so angry that Starmer is going to move closer to the EU. How can they align us with the EU without even discussing it in Parliament? Do they not think about the freedom of US trade deals with Trump or any trade deal? Who will not like to hear this at all? I can't say I'm enjoying my retirement. Peter, hello again, David. Starmer's bunch of amateurs are ignoring the Brexit vote just as they're ignoring the millions that voted reform and why they voted reform. Keep all of these messages coming in, please. Your thoughts on that. Keir Starmer, I just wonder, is he just completely tone deaf? Because he just seems to be... I mean, Amy made a really good point earlier. There is no kind of concerted political strategy here at all. You know, the other papers this morning talking about the reversing the winter fuel cut this morning. This is in a number of papers, including this one, The Eye. It's in the Mirror. It's also in the Daily Express this morning. And now Rachel Reeves wants to get her hands on your ISA as well. So capping that limit from £20,000 down to £4,000. That's not going to go down very well either. Let's stay with parliamentary business and something that I feel very passionate about. And yesterday we saw some very heated, I think it's fair to say, discussions in the House of Commons over assisted dying. Now, yesterday, one of the sort of standout moments from this, I think, from the debate was that no one would be forced to help with the process of assisted dying against their wishes. These are changes approved by MPs. So, as we know, the legislation passed through the House of Commons last November. It was then delayed. Loads of amendments were then added by both sides. They started to vote on all of these amendments. They ran out of time. Now, what does that mean? It means that then this is now delayed again to the 13th of June. I think this is an incredibly important piece of legislation. At the same time, it has to make sure that it has good safeguarding in there. You've got people like Dame Esther Ranson wading in as well. You've got people who I think are speaking in the House of Commons without actually a great deal of knowledge. You've also got a great quote from one of the members of Parliament who is actually a doctor by training, a surgeon. He spoke up on the matter, and I am confused as to how this may well play out. And that's why I've asked Dr. Craig Prescott, constitutional law expert from Royal Holloway, University of London, to join me this morning in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to join you.
It's a really emotive issue, this, and I can argue it. I've been there. I've looked after terminally ill people, and from my perspective, I've had people who are desperately ill, who know there is no recovery, pleading with me to end their suffering. It is a terrible place to be in for the patient and for the doctor. And now we've got a long way down the parliamentary timetable, I think, with this assisted dying bill. If it went through, it would be meteoric, actually, and change the legal framework in this country. Could you just explain to people, because clearly it passed that first hurdle, it then went for very serious revision. All these amendments have been added. Can you just sort of put that into layman's terms?
Yes, so the big vote we had at the end of last year was second reading, as it's called.
Yes.
And that's where the House of Commons approves the bill in principle. It then went to the committee stage, which is sort of like a mini version of the House of Commons, where the bill gets looked at line by line. And each clause of the bill actually gets specifically approved. There can be amendments to those clauses. And then yesterday was the start of report stage, where effectively the committee, so to speak, reports back to the broader House of Commons. And the Commons sort of now can sort of table amendments to what the Public Bill Committee has done.
So they come back and they say, right, we've been through this line by line. This is essentially what we're giving it back to you, the newer, fresher version. So the amendments are the members who are saying, actually, I want to change various bits of this.
Yes, to change any aspect of the legislation as it stands now. So it could be new clauses are added, or it could be that there are amendments to the clauses that were there when sent from committee.
So the biggest amendment that I saw was that, if you remember, back in the beginning, they were going to have 2 independent doctors to determine whether a patient meets the criteria, and a High Court judge to take evidence from at least one doctor and a patient, and a timeline with an assessment, 7 days of cooling off, a judgment, and 14 days post-decision, which was going to be the safeguard. There would also be a coercion safeguard remaining illegal for anyone to coerce or pressure anyone into assisted dying. Now, the High Court judge got removed. That's been replaced by a panel of experts, lawyers, social workers and psychiatrists. I think that's quite significant.
Yes, that's undoubtedly a big change, and it's not uncommon for legislation to go through, you know, such big changes. You know, you get, even if it's a government bill, you get, you know, the initial idea, and then those who affect it by it say, no, that's probably not the best way to do it. Have you thought about doing it this way? You know, this is all sort of part of the natural parliamentary process, and I think the concern from High Court judges was that there probably isn't enough of them to do this, that there's not that many of them, you know, sort of 1,500 or so, and would be a big addition to the workload. So you're probably better to have specially appointed panels to do this rather than High Court judges that have other things to do.
So in terms of this, it was unusual, wasn't it? Because a lot of amendments had been tabled by Kim Leadbeater herself. Is that unusual?
Not necessarily. It's sort of, if it's a government bill, the government tables amendments all the time as it's gone through. And in a sense, Kim Leadbeater is sort of the proposer of the bill, and so, you know, she will take things on as it goes through the debate and say, yes, OK, this was an issue in committee, we're revisiting it now. So that's terribly unusual.
I mean, so yesterday, I think one of the, and reading lots of copy this morning, it seems that actually the first debate was quite pedestrian and thoughtful, and we'd heard testimonials from people. This seemed to be much fierier, where people were much more fractious and ill-tempered.
Yes, that's very much my take about it as well. I think there's increasing frustration about the broad procedure, that it's a private member's bill, which means that the amount of time to debate this legislation is fundamentally limited. And
can it be extended?
It can be extended, and in a sense it is going to be extended because it's coming back in June, as you said earlier. So we're going to have another day for this report stage.
And what happens if, sorry, I'm going a bit too far, but let's say it comes back and they discuss more amendments then. What happens if they run out of time then?
If they run out of time and the report stage isn't complete, the bill gets lost.
But that seems ridiculous.
Yes, it's sort of, this is the problem with private members' bills, that there are limited opportunities.
Could they not say we'll have another day?
That would be up to the government. The government could potentially allow more time for this. The thing is, normally on, say, a Monday to Thursday, government business takes priority.
I see.
And then there are like these 16 Fridays when private members' bills are sort of allotted time.
And they're always on a Friday?
And it's always on a Friday.
I didn't know that.
And that's, you know, because at the end of the parliamentary week, most private members' bills aren't terribly important, frankly, and so most MPs can go to their constituencies that day. You know, that's how it all works out. But of course, with this, I think it's really unusual now to have such a long bill dealing with such a big issue that's being dealt with via the private members' bill process.
Yes, I would agree.
When you look at most private members' bills these days, there are 2 or 3 lines dealing with something vaguely esoteric, like, you know, there's one which is importation of dogs, cats and ferrets.
Yes.
That's on this year's list, and it's like, I'm not sure why ferrets are added as opposed to anything else, but it's...
Ferrets have feelings.
Well, I suppose they do. So it's, you know, but I think it just shows you that this is an unusual way these days to deal with
So is there any mechanism? Because I think this is a really important bill. We're dealing with how to allow people to have a great, dignified death. And if it's come from a private member's bill, if it runs out of time, my concern for this is it's thrown into the long grass. Now, some of those speeches we heard yesterday, I thought, quite frankly, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know whether they're talking about it because they're saying things they think their constituents want them to say, which is that we think we need to provide really good end-of-life care. Well, yes, I think we all want that, but we also know that's not possible in all circumstances. But equally, if I have a relative that is terminally ill, I don't want them going off to Switzerland to sit in a sterile room where you don't have your family around you. I think that's barbaric.
Yes, it's sort of, and I think this is, in a sense, a failure of our political class over the past 10, 15 years, not to think about this properly. It's been discussed and debated, and, you know, really this is something that the government should have proposed, or I think when Kim Leadbeater's came top of the private members' bill, they arguably should have, you know, facilitated the bill a little bit more, I think, and I think make clear that, you know, if it needed more time, it could have got it. And I think there are some... I think the government could perhaps dealt with this a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, so a couple of things that really stood out for me is Kim said... Put this simply, if we do not vote to change the law, we're essentially saying the status quo is acceptable. I thought that was very powerful, actually, because clearly the status quo isn't acceptable. Then you've got Dame Esther Ranson wading in, saying that this is basically a lot of the decisions made by those members of Parliament are based on what she said, undeclared personal religious beliefs, which didn't go down particularly well. But then I saw Rebecca Wilcox, who is her daughter, trying to explain the situation they're in as a family. And, of course, it's very emotionally charged as a family.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I've been in this position myself where, you know, my mother, sort of towards the end of her life, you know, did not have the best of deaths, really. It's sort of, you know, she was terminally ill and... you know, it was very clear sort of what direction this was going in, and you think, is there not a better way of doing this?
There is a better way.
Sort of, and other countries do this,
yes, of course,
without that significant sort of...
And actually, there should be appropriate safeguards, and also you can always revisit the legislation if it is rolled out. So now, then I was hearing that some people have changed their minds, so those people who voted in favour or abstained may well change. What's your reading of the arithmetic?
I think both votes went through very easily yesterday, so, you know, sort of majorities of 40 or so, which is broadly in line with second reading. So I think if there's, you know, not many MPs have shifted opinion yet. You know, I think getting approval at second reading was very significant because that's put this whole thing. Yes, because that's really when it gets, you know, the principle has been approved and we're now discussing technicalities effectively. Yes. It is open for MPs to vote against it at third reading if they wish, but that's relatively rare, having gone through all these other processes.
And as a member of Parliament, if you were to vote against a bill at a third reading, then you would have to have pretty good reason to do so.
Having done so at second reading, yes, you know, that's something you would want to explain to your constituents, sort of, why did I change my mind?
Yes.
And you know, there have been some controversies, but I don't think anything really about the principle of it. And it's such a well-established debate that you would vote for it at second reading, knowing what's going to come in train. I think some of the procedural objections have merit in terms of the private members' bill process, but I think they're probably overstating it and they're trying to oppose the bill without necessarily being seen to oppose the bill.
So given that they voted on these amendments to ensure that there is no obligation on anyone, including medical staff, to take part in assisted dying if they don't want to, also preventing doctors from discussing the option with patients under the age of 18, and also not to bring it up proactively with a patient, I think those are all good safeguards. I would vote for those myself. But surely, if you have a patient who is in terrible pain, and I've seen this, where they're begging you for drugs and they say, my life is not worth living, you know, I'm doubly incontinent, whatever it is. Given that these safeguards have now been put forward, is your view that it will go through?
Yes, I think it will, because we have another day for report.
Oh, I see. So the June one is another report day?
Yes, well, we should finish off what didn't get voted on yesterday. The big complication, that of course has to go through the Lords. You don't know what's going to happen in the House of Lords necessarily. And then with any amendments...
So, sorry, just at that report stage, so they then vote on a couple more amendments?
They will vote on the amendments that the Speaker selects.
And then once that is done, then it goes to the upper house, does it?
You get third reading, which is usually very short, and then it goes to the upper house, and then it goes through the same process.
But now, once it's at the upper house, can it run out of time?
It can. The House of Lords is more flexible over how it sort of deals with private members' bills and can allow more time if that's needed. But then the big issue is that it must complete its parliamentary passage and get royal assent before the end of this parliamentary session. So it must go through the Lords, any amendments agreed with the Commons, then get the royal assent to become an Act of Parliament and complete.
And when's that going to be? End of July?
We don't know. Normally sessions of Parliament run around a year. This one started in July, so it doesn't give the Lords a lot of time.
No, it doesn't.
But in the assessment, in the impact assessment document that the government drew up for this, it suggested that royal assent could be in October, which suggests that this session of Parliament could last until September, October, maybe November.
What happens to the MPs' holidays? They'll be absolutely devastated.
They'll still have their holidays, but it gives the government more time to do, I think, complete its own legislation. So, you know, so that's an interesting thing that we don't know.
So could they go on recess for a month before?
Yes, absolutely.
They could. Okay.
Yeah, so recess is fine because that's just their holidays. It's it's the session of Parliament, and then a new King's Speech, which starts off the next session. And so whenever that is, this legislation has to complete its passage before then.
If you're a betting man, would it go through?
I think so, yes. It's sort of, I wouldn't give it great odds, but it's...
What odds?
I would give it 4-1. But I think that's a bet I would take, put it that way.
Really good of you to come in. Thank you very much for clearing that up, and I think lots of people around the country will find that fascinating. Thank you. Just in terms of the parliamentary process, Dr. Craig Prescott, their constitutional law expert from Royal Holloway, University of London. Lots of messages coming in. Julian, good morning to you. Good morning at all. Can this Labour shower possibly make themselves any more unelectable? They're breaking new ground in the unpopularity stakes. Amazing, isn't it? Keir Starmer's popularity sort of below rock bottom, actually. On Brexit, good morning, David Gaza. Good to have you back, David. I think the plan for Labour is to ensure younger people are not counted in the migration figures, and then they will claim it's being reduced. Labour are a disgrace. They're betraying the country. This one also on immigration. I'm telling you, immigration right up there in terms of the electoral problems or for Labour. Hello again. Starmer's apparent change of tactics on immigration is pure smoke and mirrors. He and his bunch of liars think the British public are stupid and gullible. Their duplicity will be found out in the course of time. Good morning, David. Brendan Silver, one of our regulars. Good morning, Brendan. Keir isn't undoing Brexit because we never had a Brexit for him to undo. Well said, sir. He's just tangling us up with the EU so he can ensure that we'll never be able to get a proper Brexit. David, this is Susan. Starmer and co don't know what they're doing. They must pick the week's new idea from a hat and believe that it's a better idea than last week's. Goodness help us all. This one, lots of you actually saying the same thing again about you cannot believe that Keir Starmer is cozying up back with the European Union. Also very keen to hear your ideas on assisted dying as well and where we are based on what Craig has just said there. And the question I'm asking today, is Keir Starmer actually undoing Brexit? If there is a Brexit to undo. If he is doing that, then he's defying voters. What does that mean in terms of the other political parties and the political pendulum? And which way does it swing next? 0344 499 1000. Those calls charged at the national rate. After the break, it's our head-to-head. Joining me this morning, Gawain Towler, who's a veteran of Westminster Comms, and Mike, he'll kill me for that, and Mike Indian, who's a political journalist and commentator. That's coming up next. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning!
Starmer humiliated on TV in Albania. This was a fascinating one, really, because he sort of arranged this whole trip, brought a lot of the press pack out to Albania, talking about returns and returns policy, and said we want to do something along the lines that Albania does. They have an agreement with Italy, and then the Albanian Prime Minister said, oh yeah, by the way, you're not going to be doing it with us.
Well, I couldn't believe it when I was watching it, because I thought this is... the planning hasn't gone to plan, or hasn't gone quite right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. We were talking about assisted dying, actually. With the NHS so stretched and taking weeks and months to get routine appointments, how will they be able to get all the necessary professionals together to meet up quickly to make their decision? The devil is in the detail, actually, and it is complex, but obviously those amendments are being voted on, and we just heard what the timeline is politically. Good morning, David. Starmer is all about smoke and mirrors. He's doing just what he wants, regardless of what the country actually voted for, with the majority not voting for the EU. He truly believes we, the public, are not capable of understanding what we want. That's Kevin in East Suffolk. Hi, David. The Remainers are not just throwing the kitchen sink at rejoining the EU, they're throwing the whole housing estate at it. That's Brian. And then going back to assisted dying, Dr. David, this is Amanda, should be a respected personal choice. I totally agree. Written in a legal document and power of attorney given to a trusted person to only assume the desire of the government is divide and rule. Keep all those messages coming in, please. But now it's time for Head to Head. Oh, well, joining me this morning, Gawain Towler, veteran of Westminster Comms. I can't stop myself. And joining him, Mike Indian, political journalist and commentator. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right, should we start with the front pages this morning? Keir Starmer says his Brexit reset deal. Gawain, you and I were in the European Parliament together. This is going to make people better off. Oh, no, it's not actually allowing freedom of movement. No, what we're going to do is... what we're going to do is allow a youth mobility scheme. We're going to have some sort of reset with Europe. We're going to come closer, but not too close. And then... But it's all smoke and mirrors, all of this. And actually, what you're going to do, if you're talking about trade and you're going to start talking about fish again, and all the stuff that you and I have talked about over the years, you're going to have supranational bodies overseeing all of that. That is not Brexit.
No, it isn't, clearly. And it's certainly not what the 17.4 voted for. However, things have moved on, polls have changed somewhat, and one has to accept there's some changes. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's refusing to say there'll be a cap on this free movement thing.
Correct.
I wouldn't be at all surprised if on Monday he says, oh no, there is a cap. He's already decided there's a cap. They've agreed there's a cap. But he's going to say...
Are you telling me they have agreed that?
Oh, I reckon so, quietly. But they haven't told anybody. So therefore he can announce a win. He has won something. He's got the cap. So therefore, everybody, stop worrying. I've got a cap. But...
And this is the cap on student numbers.
On student numbers.
Right.
I'm pretty certain that has been agreed. It's just they're going to announce it as a fearsome negotiation on the part of the government. But that's, to a certain extent, is irrelevant because those caps work, or the student numbers business works because it's on visas and we let people overstay their visa.
Oh, we're really good at it.
So that doesn't work. No, the most important thing is dynamic alignment. And it sounds like a sort of an 80s pop band. But
I like them.
Precisely. But dynamic alignment is basically being a rule taker, not a rule maker.
Yeah.
It means that whenever the European Union does something dumb, which it often does when it comes to regulation, we have to follow them. The whole point of Brexit was to be able to set legislation and regulation that suits our economy and our people. And I think one thing that Starmer, he's looking at the polls, as I mentioned, he's looking at the polls and seeing that Brexit isn't as popular as it was. He seems to forget a year before the referendum it certainly wasn't as popular as it became. And his feeling, if he wants to win back the red wall that him and Morgan McSweeney clearly do want to do, with their noises about migration, their noises about other things, that he... be careful what you wish for, because I don't see the red wall falling into line with a complete realignment and us taking those rules not for our benefit.
If anything, and from the calls that we've had this morning from the Red Wall, he's doing quite the opposite. The fact is that the Red Wall is incensed that they voted for Brexit. They are not getting what they voted for. Keir Starmer, not listening. I'm going to counter reform by getting closer to the European Union. Is he insane? Has he got no common sense? Has he lost touch with working people, which he seems very keen to be spouting the whole time?
This deal represents a very difficult moment for the Labour Party as a whole. So Keir Starmer's close ally Nick Thomas-Symonds has been negotiating it. It means defining what he's meant by a reset of our relationship with the EU. It sounds great, but this is putting the meat on the bones of that particular piece of language. The issue is going to be, as you say, David, lots of Labour voters peeled away from the party under Jeremy Corbyn and remained away from the party in the 2024 election as well. In the Red Wall, Reform picked up votes from there as well. Starmer's doing this off the back of a very strong showing for Reform. And for Labour voters, you mentioned the polling there, even among die-hard Labour supporters, the Prime Minister's favourables from More in Common polling have fallen to one of their lowest levels recently. So he cannot ride two horses here. He has to pick one. He is not proposing a full back-in deal. This is the man who wanted a Remain option on a referendum just merely 5 years ago. That is not what has been proposed now. He's not saying we'll go back in, but I'm sensing phrases like common rule book, as Gwen says, dynamic alignment. I'm going to need therapy because I'm going to have to start reliving the things that Brexit need. I'm going to start reciting meaningful vote procedure in my sleep again at this point. But nobody wants to rehash these arguments. What we need to see are certain areas which are things like no one would argue against less security cooperation with the EU. I think at the moment with the US stepping away, troop reductions on the continent, the situation in Ukraine, that makes sense.
But you can have to think on NATO.
But you can have an agreement. You don't have to be overseen by an EU body, do you?
No, I don't think we would be in that regard. We are still outside the EU.
I think we absolutely will be.
I mean, no one's talking about the creation of a European army.
Yes, good Lord.
But Gwen mentioned NATO there. Trump is not committed to NATO, remember, as well. So we had to look at other forms of collective
NATO, if we are.
Yes, well, I think that's the point. Trump's view is that he is committed to NATO, but he believes that the countries need to cough up.
And they're beginning to be fair. And Trump's behaviour on this has forced the hands of many countries who have been coasting on the American security umbrella to up their commitment.
No one doubts
this is a good thing.
No one doubts that.
Let's just go back to this, which is Rachel Reeves has gone even further. The headline in The Guardian, UK is on a path to deeper EU relationship. I mean, whether she has gone completely off-piste here, but she says there is a decisive break with the ideological Brexit battles of the past. I read that and reread that. So there's a decisive break. What? So we rejoin, is what you're saying?
I don't think so, no, because
isn't it rejoining all but
with the size of Labour's majority, they could have put through, another referendum bill if they wanted to. One of your callers accused
I can imagine why.
One of your callers accused the government of ignoring the popular will. Starmer, I think, is very live with this issue. Don't forget, he was the shadow Brexit spokesperson for the entirety of the debate, 2016 to 2020. This was what he came into politics, doing, as it were. This is his kind of front bench experience. But at the same time, we have, at the same point, seen a distancing of our relationship with the EU. We are seeing, we've got the best trade deal we're going to get with the United States now. So the choices are effectively, do we seek trade deals elsewhere, or do we try and improve our relationship with our closest partner, which there is room to do. And Gwen himself acknowledged the polls have moved on this. More people want a closer relationship now.
So where Starmer's problem is, he's leeching people to the Lib Dems, he's leeching people to the Greens, who are very pro-EU, but then he's leeching people to Reform. And he's in this cleft stick. But, I mean, you're right. Starmer cut his political teeth on being pro-European and wanting us to be in the European Union. It is not surprising that he's pushing us in that direction. And what Rachel Reeves is saying there is much the same as in the culture wars. It's much the same as in you can't talk about... Basically, we've won, shut up. We're the masters now, shut up. You can't talk about Brexit, shut up. This is what we're doing, shut up. And that's what she's saying. She's trying to close the debate down before the debate has even started on this thing they're doing on Monday. And it's clear to me...
But you see, so if they come back with much more dynamic agreement, alignment, or whatever you want to call it...
Rule-taking. Let's call it something real.
All right, rule-taking.
Dynamic alignment. As I say, it sounds like a pop band. It doesn't sound what it is, which is
I may be wrong, but that
British goods exporters would see it as fewer barriers to get access to
They may well
do,
but the voters
Which voters
think,
are we talking about
I
here,
think the
though?
vast majority of people in this country will look at that and think we've been sold down the river.
We talk about the 17.4 million, though they're still a homogenous bloc. That group has fractured into, yes, there will be Reform voters, yes, some are still Tories, some will have voted Labour. The vast majority, I think, will have peeled off and not voted at all.
OK, let me just ask you this question.
I will not have voted at all, that's quite the point.
If they come back with that rule-taking, whatever you want to call it, dynamic alignment, whatever you want to call it, will that improve Labour's chance at the ballot box?
I think if it increases growth and living standards, because don't forget this week the Treasury fell into the standard trap of crowing about 0.7% growth versus 0.1. These are still derisory rates.
Yes,
living standards are still low. The job market is slowing. What they really want here is to try and improve growth figures, and that will benefit them if people feel better off.
I think you're right that those are derisory figures, and I think any improvement that may or may not happen, and I still think it may not is just as large a chance as may, will be derisory. So you take the rules and don't get economic benefit. Now, OK, so the sausage wars may have been won. But I think there's
sausages are a tiny part of the market.
They're symbolic. I mean, I know, David, that we talk about sausages often on this programme. But the point is, I've done it more than once. I
like sausages.
But the point being is you've got this great. We've seen the government pushing into various business communities and saying, go out there and fight for it. So you've got the CBI releasing a paper. Oh, what a surprise. And so on and so forth. They're getting all their allies in the business community, that which exist, to push out. We all love the EU. They did that before, and it didn't work because people saw it was a stitch-up. People saw that it was being done to them, not for them.
And also, can I just throw fishing in here? Because as someone who comes from East Anglia and from a coastal community, June Malmary is jumping up and down with fury because at the end of 2026 we come to the end of that kind of the agreement we had over fishing. We should then go to annual quotas where we decide how many how many fish the Europeans can have.
You may regret bringing up fishing with me because I was the...
But wait, Macron wants to have not a 4-year deal, a 5-year deal, and if Starmer caves into that, I'm telling you, Great Yarmouth, Lowestoft, all of these places will be apoplectic.
So in 2021 to 22, I was working with the NFFO, the fisheries body, and dealing with their reaction post-Brexit. And the political salience of this issue cannot be understated. Like, we could have a press conference and 30 journalists would turn up to listen to Barry Dees, who was the chief exec at the time. I can tell you, at that point, the fishing community were furious about the deal Boris Johnson had reached.
Yes,
they are dying for a renegotiation. So instead of perhaps being cross about this, they may actually welcome some of the steps that are in the deal on Monday. Let's see the detail. From their point of view, they were sold, pardon the pun, down the river by the government on this.
Without a doubt.
Yes,
we all agree on that. We all agree on that. And they were furious, and rightly so, because the British government
There was nothing in there
them.
the Johnson government promised them.
So let's do it again, shall we? Sell them down the river again.
I don't think so. I think that hopefully there'll be some improvements.
There is no deal that is being that the French or the Danes or the Dutch want that is going to improve the lot of the British fishermen. There just isn't.
They just want our fish.
They want our fish.
What I want to see beyond this, not just the symbolic issues, is what's going to happen on services. Most of our exports to the EU are services oriented, financial services, legal services, professional services. Nothing is like that is covered in this deal. Where is the detail on that, Prime Minister?
Right. You are quite right. And I think that this is the greatest danger of all. If this government and our government accepts dynamic alignment on sausages, then and things of that sort, and phytosanitary arrangements, then if you've sold that pass on dynamic alignment, why not dynamic alignment on financial services? Because we've already sold the pass. That's the next reset. That's the next reset. 100%. And oh my gosh, that boiling frog is boiled. That salami has sliced to the end. And that's our liberties gone again. And we will have to go through the whole process of a referendum again and fight tooth and nail.
Oh, no one wants another referendum.
No, so don't push us into a position where we're going to have one.
I would say with financial services, things like passporting are things that would benefit our services exports. We are a net exporter of this into the EU. Actually, less barriers would be a good thing for us to have in that situation. But we don't get that without freedom of movement.
Then we become rule takers once again, which is exactly what people voted against.
But not just that, David, not just that. Yes, You're right. We export greater, and we have a greater export than imports when it comes to services, financial services, things like that, with the EU.
And most of our economy is service
with
exports.
with the EU. But the dynamic sector, economic dynamic sector of the world is not the EU. The EU is a customs union. It puts trade barriers with the rest of the world. It will restrict our ability to do deals with Dubai, with Hong Kong, with China, with India, with Australia, with America, where our greatest exports in financial services go. So by agreeing to the smaller, sclerotic and shrinking economy of the EU and taking their rules, it will stop us trading with the world. And we are a global trading nation.
I have to go to a break. Louise says, David, free the sausages. We don't want the Europeans having our fish, and Reform voters, our Brexit voters. That's all you need to know. Great show, David. I love Galway. What a sensible fellow. No, he's not. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're in the middle of head-to-head with Gawain Towler and also with Mike Indian. We're right in the middle of it. Let's talk about some of the other papers this morning as well, so that we've done those ones. Now, we were talking, Amy Fisher and I were talking this morning about, is there a concerted Labour strategy? Do you think they actually have a vision of what they are trying to offer the country? Because it seems to me that things are made up on the back of a postcard. So here we are, new hope for winter fuel. They're thinking about maybe backtracking on the winter fuel allowance, which was a terrible policy in the first time. And that is in another paper here. Finally, some sense. Door opens on fuel pay, U-turn, winter fuel cut. Here we've got as well, Rachel Reeves. Now she's attacking ISAs, because that's a really good thing to do, isn't it, when you're an older person putting money away sensibly in an ISA. Does the government have any sense of direction?
I mean, the winter fuel payment, if there is a U-turn, it will be deeply embarrassing given the amount of time, effort and political
capital.
Wouldn't
it by political will? Wouldn't
I don't think
people
it
then
would.
say, well, maybe they did get it wrong?
I think it shows, look, there's a debate about whether or not the policy should benefit people or not, but there's also a perception here, and I think Gawain will agree with this as a comms thing. If you apologise at this point, 10 months in, you're going to start to look weak, particularly if you've just had a very bruising set of local election results and the by-election loss as well. It looks like a cynical calculation to keep people doing. The smart thing for them to do would be to increase the threshold which people could claim it at, which is one of the options talked about.
Talking about 11,000, aren't they?
And I think that's probably the way they'll go. They'll, increase the tapering off point. Does the government have a strategy? No. Have they had more comms successes this year, I would say, in terms of things like the India trade deal, Ukraine conferences, and maybe this EU thing on Monday? Yes, but it doesn't amount to a strategy.
The Indian trade deal as a comms success, they allowed what was essentially quite a good deal, and I'll accept that, to become dominated by a small number of people being allowed to work in this country without paying NIC. They didn't even talk to the Indians. OK, we're putting this press release. What are you putting up? Oh, my gosh, you're talking about that. All right, we've got to cover this. They denied its existence until it was blown out of the water. A really good thing they did, I think, the trade deal with India, was destroyed in a PR sense by them being thick. And failing to do their job in a PR sense.
And why is that? Is it naivety, inexperience?
I think there's a level of... I think they basically... I don't think they really care what people think. They think they're doing the right thing, and they go ahead and do it. IHT on farms. They'd forgotten that because of the election, they now had 100 seats that had large agricultural communities.
And small
they hadn't
majorities.
noticed. And small majorities.
Small majorities.
The winter fuel. The Treasury's been trying to get governments to do this for years, and they went, yeah, actually, we need to do that, so let's do it. And they didn't think of the ramifications for the general public, because I don't think, because of what you're saying, and you mentioned the idea that they are slightly out of touch with the general public. They are seminar room socialists as opposed to street socialists, and they don't understand what the ground thinks, and they don't seem to care because they are significantly better than us.
Can
and
I
they
just
know more.
Can I just ask you about this? There's a really interesting. I don't know where this was actually. The Mail. I printed it out. This was the Plaid Cymru leader Liz Saville-Roberts, who wounded Sir Keir Starmer with this, saying the Prime Minister once spoke of compassion and dignity for migrants and for defending free movement. Now he talks about islands of strangers and taking back control. That's very much a Reform UK playbook. I just wonder whether Starmer, and let's talk about who's behind Starmer. Morgan McSweeney, you mentioned him earlier. Does Starmer, he seems to flip-flop around. He will make one pronouncement one day and then another the other day. They were talking about that Morgan McSweeney is writing some of this, and this, essentially what the article is saying here, is that McSweeney is Starmer's political brain. He crafted the master plan that took him to number 10. But Keir Starmer doesn't believe a word that he's actually being read out.
I think Keir Starmer is someone who's spent most of his career as a lawyer. He's been a politician now for, well, less than a decade. You know, 10 years this year, he was first elected to the House of Commons. He's someone who's had to learn very quickly what political positions he plays. I think he has firm principles on things.
Does he?
I think if you
Give
see
me a
things
firm
like,
principle.
Well, I think
just one.
Well,
anyone.
Look at his firm stance in response to the rioting last summer. Like as someone who's worked in Northern Ireland, as somebody who's worked with the CPS, he believes firmly in the rule in firm law and order policies. Though it's like Tony Blair, as Shadow Home Secretary, enhanced in that regard. International human rights, international law.
Hang on, well,
he's very much at home
in that section
on
sensible justice and the riots, because I
didn't say sensible justice. I said a firm response. I didn't use the word sensible.
It's a firm response for some people, less firm for others. I think and that's one of the reasons people are so annoyed with him and his government, the two-tier care thing. The reason why it's used, the reason why it resonates, is because you look out and that's what you see.
I'd love to say, can you point to a single leading politician who's been in government that's held a consistent position over time? But
consistency comes across as fanaticism.
But Keir Starmer is the incumbent, and he's rightly under scrutiny. This is part of the reason why people don't feel this government has a strategy. They won the election last year on a low turnout and a low proportion of the vote, primarily due to the Conservative Party's collapse. They didn't need to set out a vision. What they're having to do now is think in real time. What I do think is that the more events Keir Starmer is exposed to in office, whether it's Ukraine, the Trump tariff situation, the EU reset, the more he has to think about what do I stand for. And I think that is helping him become a more substantial figure.
Even with immigration, which I still think is the #1 issue when it comes to the electorate currently, he then went to talk about return hubs in Albania, and Albania promptly turned around and said, no, you're not having that deal with us. I mean, it just doesn't seem so.
I wrote a blog about this week on the Grant Show tendency. It's worth having a read of because it talks about how Blair started 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, in that famous clash with Farage, Gwen, you were there in the European Parliament talking about, the issue of, European budgets. And now we have a Labour Prime Minister talking about an island of strangers. They don't know what to do on migration. They flailed on it for so long. And unless they get prepared to grasp the nettle and fully overhaul our immigration system to bring the net migration figures down, it will not benefit them, no matter what they say.
You asked who's behind
I did.
Starmer. You got McSweeney. I would say that right now, Lord Alley is no longer going to a nice Italian tailors, but at looking at something like cordings and buying some mustard cords, tweed jacket, things of this sort, because it's clear that the Starmer's current thing on immigration is to look the part, look like Farage.
You should be giving him sartorial advice.
Well, indeed. But I mean, basically, tweed jacket, Union Jack socks. Yeah. My goodness, who's this bloke? He's got glasses.
He might be wearing a flat cap.
But he is clearly trying to ape or echo Farage and the reform line when it comes to migration.
But he can't out Farage.
And this idea,
he shouldn't try
and
to.
it's the when you have
but he is trying to.
When you have people like Mike Tapp going on TV and saying we're going to smash the gangs, you're not going to smash criminal gangs. You have to smash the incentives.
Yes.
Because when you smash one gang, like Hydra, another foo pop up.
Yes.
It's sowing dragon's teeth, what the government will do, and that will not reduce the number of people coming across the channel. They have to break the incentive structure, and there's no intention of doing that. The HMOs, the Serco 5-year contracts, things of this sort, they're actually increasing. And when the French, as a sop, we pay them all this money to help stop the boats coming over, and they're saying, oh, we might do a little bit more work in Sangatte, we might do a bit more work in Calais, if you agree to 5 years more fish. It's like, we've given you a whole bunch of cash and you've done nout, it seems. But the whole point is that they are not addressing migration because it's not in their gut. And when you have the Plaid Cymru basically calling for Wales to be a sanctuary nation, Plaid Cymru are also going to look down an electoral gun.
Yes, it's a very good point. All right, gentlemen, I have to pause. Don't go anywhere. This is Weekend Breakfast. We'll continue after the break.
Keir Starmer humiliated on TV in Albania. This was a fascinating one, really, because he'd sort of arranged this whole trip, brought a lot of the press pack out to Albania, talking about returns and returns policy, and said we want to do something along the lines that Albania does. They have an agreement with Italy, and then the Albanian Prime Minister said, oh yeah, by the way, you're not going to be doing it with us.
Well, I couldn't believe it when I was watching it, because I thought this is... the planning hasn't gone to plan, or hasn't gone quite right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm with Gawain Towler and Mike Indian. Very quickly, Lisa Nandy's Culture Department faces axe. The Culture Department apparently is going to be axed by Downing Street. This is their civil service efficiency drive. It brings an end to 33 years of a standalone government department for arts and cultural matters. This means that Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary who once stood against the Keir Starmer, could be out of a job. I don't really know what I think about this. Gawain, a Department of Culture, Media and Sport, I think it was the DCMS originally, it got renamed as the Culture Department. I think also it was built by the Conservatives in 1992.
Department of National Heritage.
Yes, they created the National Lottery.
To control the creation of the National Lottery. That's what it was. When the National Lottery initially was, when it was being
very
presented.
successful.
Well, funnily enough, my first job in politics was working for a firm called the Lottery Promotion Company, and, and we were pushing, and in those days it was just for arts. It was supposed to be an arts lottery, but to get it over the line, they included sports and heritage.
Right.
And this was all part of what happened. I think there's a lot of fat in government departments.
I would agree.
But I'm not sure that I would trust Look at what's happened to online safety. It was taken out of DCMS and handed over to another department. I don't trust them an inch with that.
And you see, this is my worry, is that arts would be subsumed into communities department.
Well,
this is the thing. That just worries me.
I think it's not so much under Labour. It's not so much the Department of Culture. In fact, under the Tories as well, but the Department for Culture war. It has driven the prevailing agenda in the arts. That you can't go to an exhibition in a government-funded or Arts Council-funded or government-supported museum in the country without being lectured and hectored by every single little badge next to a painting or a thing. And I think that's
telling you why it was wrong, or it was written in or painted in a certain era.
Let's set Lisa and Andy aside for a moment. Yes. Starmer wants her consigned to the back benches where she can agitate.
Also, Chris Bryant goes as well. So.
I mean, look, it doesn't matter who the ministers are. Let's look at the fact that the UK has huge soft power pools, £34 billion creative industries. The Premier League football teams that are recognised the world over.
Yes.
You go to any country where they're soccer mad, they talk about
amazing museums and theatres.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, the massive powers handed to Ofcom. You know, the BBC. Or these, you know, the department is a huge ambassador for one of the UK's
so why
best
get rid of
exports. And this is my point. Donald Trump is threatening 100% tariffs on non-US films. This could decimate the UK film industry. And how does this government respond? By getting rid of the only cabinet-level specific post that deals with this absolute gem of an industry.
So then it comes back to my previous question: is does the government actually have any joined-up policy?
I don't think it does in this case.
No,
and this is a massive mistake.
But not just this case.
In every case.
But in this case, if we do this now, it's tantamount to surrendering one of the UK's best, you know, soft power exports in an increasingly competitive world. I don't understand.
If you're talking about film exports, I suppose the government would say, well, maybe we should put that under trade. Under the Department of Trade. If you're not talking as a cultural thing, but as an export thing, as an economic thing, maybe you should be fighting it under the trade level rather than as...
We've seen the problem with super departments. I look at the business department, the way that's been reconfigured over the years. People can't decide whether it should be universities, business, energy, industrial strategy. At the moment, it's business and trade. That kind of makes sense. Where else would these bits go? They get subsumed into smaller.
Who would control the BBC and the millions of people who have to pay their licence fee and are unhappy about it? Where does that go? I don't know.
Exactly. These bits have no natural home, but together, and it's a clear message about brand UK PLC and the cultural exports, the heritage of the sport that we offer to the world. This is something we should be proud to have represented around the cabinet table and to have a minister for.
I would agree, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Time has beaten us. Gawain Towler, Westminster veteran comms, and Mike Indian, political journalist and commentator, and that was today's Head to Head. Head to Head. Oh, David, we voted to leave. Starmer should put his proposals for re-entry to a public vote. Does he not know that placing the command of our troops under foreign command is illegal? His whole EU objective is to take UK with the EU to World War III against Russia. David, I wonder, good morning, this is Alan from Tamworth. I wonder if Starmer is trying to appeal to the 48% who voted against Brexit in order to try to recover some sort of support. Great show as always, thank you. With Reform voters, Howard in Suffolk, my neck of the woods, with Reform voters growing fast, it's clear there would be more voters wanting us to stay clear of EU rule-taking than in 2016. So you think an increase in the vote. As always, Starmer gives more votes to rival parties with everything that he does. Very good, very droll. I like that a lot. Good morning. I don't think I've done this one. Good morning, David. How ironic on World Fiddle Day, Starmer and his Stalinista Dumb and Dumbers team is blindly, undemocratically burning the UK to the ground in defiance of the public and against his electoral promises. Lies without real punitive accountability, short of a French-style revolution. Other than at the ballot box, it's clear he's driving the UK into his beloved Davos directives and agenda and not too interested in UK security and quality of life. Politics needs to be dragged into the future and politicians employed with the same contracts as the peasant public and punished accordingly. Crikey, that's draconian. Ian, thanks very much. He mentions on the end of that, have a nice day. Right, well, thanks very much. Right, time for a break. After the break, we're going to be talking about the Eurovision Song Contest. The final is tonight at 8 o'clock from Basel in Switzerland.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Although I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Just after 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock already on Saturday, May the 17th. I'm David Bull, and I'm back from my birthday celebrations, much fatter and replete. And now I have good news, great news for you today, because it's World Fiddle Day. A day created to honour the bowed stringed instrument made popular by Italian violin craftsman Antonio Stradivari. Now, whilst you're enjoying that, you could have a glass of whiskey, because it's World Whiskey Day. Oh, yes, lovely. An annual celebration to mark the rich heritage of the distilled spirit. It's made from fermented grains and is known for its diverse flavour and ageing process, rather like me. Yes. And, ladies and gentlemen, tonight is the final of Eurovision. Yes, that is correct. Tonight from 8 o'clock, 37 countries will be battling it out to become this year's Eurovision winner. The competition, by the way, is watched by 200 million people across the globe and is live tonight from Basel in Switzerland.
Good evening, Europe. Good morning, Australia.
Yeah, there you go. So Eurovision, which is taking place tonight. Let's move on to this hour's fascinating facts.
Today's fascinating facts.
Now, some new ones for you. On this day in 1984, gosh, I remember this like yesterday, Prince Charles called a proposed addition to the National Gallery in London a monstrous carbuncle on the face of a much-loved and elegant friend, sparking controversy of the proper role of the royal family in the course of modern architecture. On this day in 2002, Royal Marine Commanders Corporal Alan Chambers, 31, and Marine Charlie Payton, 29, became the first Britons to reach the geographical North Pole. And this also affected my family's travels, actually. On this day in 2010, 15 years ago. After 4 weeks after volcanic ash cloud disrupted flights over much of Europe, restrictions were lifted at all UK airports after the volcanic ash cloud moved away from UK airspace. Wow, 15 years ago. And those are this morning's fascinating facts.
Weekend breakfast, we're the top of the game. The David Bull team, we're reaching for the sky.
Very good morning to you. Lots going on in the papers. If you are just waking up this morning, yeah, it's pretty bad news, actually. Keir Starmer is going to have a reset with the European Union, which means dynamic alignment. Read into that. He's basically trying to undo the whole Brexit deal. He says this is going to be the closest alignment with the EU since Brexit. Will cover trade, agriculture, security and defence. Of course, there's going to be some sort of deal done on young people coming into the country, so some sort of freedom of movement of young people. No, it's not freedom of movement, that's what he's saying. But Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, says actually it is. It's a backdoor to free movement of people that will be strongly opposed by Brexit voters. Also, Kemi Badenoch said that this is an uncapped migration scheme. Rachel Reeves has gone further. She says, oh no, we're on a path to deeper EU relationship. That's not what people voted for. You're not listening. Anyway, so those are the kind of the big headlines. Also, they don't seem to know what they're doing because they're now talking about reversing the winter fuel payment. Maybe they'll think again about farmers. I was reading yesterday, actually, they may delay the imposition of the inheritance tax on farmers, and I would welcome that if they do, because the whole thing hasn't been thought out at all. And just talking to my friends who are farmers, it's pretty much put them in very difficult position indeed. And then Rachel Reeves is going to nick your money as well out of your ISA, so it's all very jolly news. So let's move on to something much jollier, because tonight is the final of the Eurovision Song Contest. Now, I was saying earlier on to Amy Fisher, it began as a technical experiment in television broadcasting, this idea of a live, simultaneous, transnational broadcast that Europe has now been watching for nearly 70 years. It is quite something. The first one was held on the 24th of May in 1956 and saw 7 nations competing. They were the Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, Germany, France, Luxembourg and Italy. Now, Austria and Denmark wanted to play, but they had missed the deadline to apply. The United Kingdom sent its apologies and said we were busy. We're too busy. Can't do that because we were having our own contest that year. Anyway, obviously it has now evolved significantly. It is underpinned by the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union. And the proposal for the Eurovision Network came from a chap called Marcel Bezençon, the Director General of the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation. But it was Italy that actually came up with the Eurovision Song Contest. And as we know, the first one was in 1956. Now, I kind of grew up with the Eurovision Song Contest, and I know quite a lot about the Eurovision Song Contest. In fact, I was there in Birmingham. Now, I'm just trying to work this out. So Katrina and the Waves had won for us, Love Shine a Light, and then the following year we hosted it in Birmingham, and I was there, and that is when Dana International won. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I don't know a great deal. Like my next guest, Mike Canaris, who's a singer-songwriter. He made 2 Eurovision entries, and he's CEO of a music company called Micasso. Good morning.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks very much indeed. Now, Eurovision has got bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. Now, some people are very snobby about Eurovision and say, well, why would you watch this? But it's worth pointing out once again, 200 million people watch this worldwide. It is a massive event.
It is massive. I mean, 200 million is incredible, and it's live. And if you think of the pressure those people putting it on are under, yet they do it flawlessly. They are quite amazing. Every year it is just perfect. And it's, you know, I wanted to be involved. Like you, when I was young, my parents used to watch it, and it was just something. We all got together, we all voted, and we thought it was fun. And
yeah.
You know, I've stayed with it since then.
Well, I mean, I was looking back. I mean, this is before my time, but Sandy Shaw, Puppet on a String, was 1967. Lulu was, when was that? 1969. Now, I was born in 69, so Dana All Kinds of Everything, I remember from 1970. But really, The big ad was ABBA, wasn't it? Waterloo in 1974.
Yeah, ABBA absolutely changed Eurovision because they people always were thinking of Eurovision as a bit of a joke until they suddenly this multi-million selling act came out of Eurovision because they were good. They were great songwriters, and Eurovision gave them the platform to show their skills. And the weird thing was their next song wasn't a hit. It was it died a death, but they continued.
Which song was that?
Was it? Was it Ring Ring?
Yes, could well have been.
It may have been that one. I can't quite remember, but it became a hit later. But then they were great songwriters, and real talent can flourish on Eurovision. It's not, you don't necessarily have to be a one-off.
Well, I would agree with that. In fact, I was talking to Nikki French only yesterday. So she's a friend of mine. I was talking to her about her time in the Eurovision Song Contest. Also, I was just looking back. I mean, there were some classics here. I liked Israel's Hallelujah by Milk and Honey. That was back in 1979.
Right.
Also, Johnny Logan, brilliant vocalist as well for Ireland, winning in 1980. Bucks Fizz, I mean, who can forget them in 1981, ripping their skirts off?
I know. They were amazing. I mean, it was, again, you see that launched them. I know they were put together for that, but they continued, and the people behind them were really, really good songwriters and producers, and they carried on making hits. And so if you win Eurovision, you should be in a position, hopefully, to then continue your career. And it's not, if you're good, you will carry on.
So, I mean, you know far more than me, but what I see happening in Eurovision is we seem to go through waves of differing sort of genres of music. There is also this kind of dichotomy between Western Europe and some more easterly countries, and they seem to have very different ideas of what constitutes music. We saw us going through sort of hard rock period, but certainly listening to the two semi-finals which I have this year, which is very unusual, by the way, it's gone back to much more Euro-poppy stuff.
It has. But what has changed in the last 5 or 6 years is the staging.
Yes.
It is just incredible what they do with those LED screens. And they have 30 seconds. They show a postcard, to give time for the stagehands to change everything. There's 30 guys, apparently, who have to take off everything from the act before, put everything else in place, and they have 30 seconds to do it, and they do it flawlessly. It is just unbelievable. And this year, you've seen the semi-finals. Some of the staging is just incredible. And today, it's not about just having a great song. It's about the performer being a confident performer, and now your other element is the staging, and that is very, very important. If you get the three of those, you've got a good chance of winning.
So let's go back to the UK. I think we went out of the box last year with Ollie Alexander. I liked the song. I thought the staging was way too over the top for Eurovision and veered into what I think some people felt was rather obscene.
Yeah, yes. There is an obscene one in it this year as well. I don't know if you saw Finland.
But you can't miss it.
I know, with the song called I Come, I mean, it's going to cause a few eyebrows raised. But you see, with the UK, Ollie's song was okay, I thought. But the performance was a bit over the top, and a lot of people have said that. And what we've made the mistake in the past, this is my personal view, is that we have picked singer-songwriters because the song is really good, but they're not performers.
Yes.
Until we won. Oh God, I've forgotten his name. What's his name?
Who? Which
Number two. Oh,
Sam Ryder.
Sam Ryder, who was
boom, 10 points for me.
Amazing. Great song and great performance, and
he only lost because Ukraine won, wasn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. If it had been any other year, he would have won.
He would have won.
And what countries do as well, they pick somebody who's really big in their country to represent them, and they think they're going to be well known across Europe. But Ollie was really well known in the UK, but Europe don't pay any attention. They listen to the song. People listen to the song on that Saturday night. Not many people watch the semi-finals like you and I do. You know,
sad people.
Tonight, well, there'll be the parties there, and people will pick up the phone or their text. They will say, "We've seen the song for the first time. We like that one."
Okay, so on that note, you've seen the semi-finals. Who are the runners and riders? So can I just start? I'll start the ball rolling. I thought Spain was cracking.
You see, this is where people have different opinions. I didn't personally.
Oh.
I didn't personally. I think my favourite, my favourite. I tend to pick songs.
Yeah.
Okay? So the two songs for me that are really great.
Song. Your bathroom tiles to their original.
My iPad's playing me tunes.
Well, did he say bathroom tiles?
Yes, it did say bathroom tiles. It was an ad.
Some.
No, I don't want any.
No, my two are Netherlands and France.
What was France one?
It's called Maman. It was this.
It's too boring.
See, this is it. This people do not like ballads.
No, I don't want a ballad.
But 2017, Salvador Cabral. That song was amazing, David.
No, I don't want a ballad. I want Europop.
Then you're
what was your other one?
It's Netherlands and France. They're two. They are two good ballads.
And they're both ballads. Now, I got So actually, I rather enjoyed the interval act. This is Switzerland. I thought that should actually be in an entry.
That was good fun.
It was very good fun.
If you don't like ballads, okay, so you're.
Well, I do like ballads. I just think, for me, the ideal Eurovision winner is Adama International. That was an incredible performance. It was a brilliant piece of music. It had the obligatory key changes which you need, all that stuff. Then the costume change. I mean, that's what Eurovision is.
Yeah, but do you like gimmicky songs?
No. Well, the only one that I quite liked was Scooch flying the flag.
Oh, did you like that?
Well, only because it was just a bit outrageous.
Well, there's one this year which is I think is the outsider. I just looked up the odds. It's 33-1, and that is Estonia with a song called Espresso Macchiato.
Oh yes, no, I saw that one.
And it is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not going to win, though, is it?
You think, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. It is terrible, but it's brilliant as well. The staging, it's sung, I think, in Italian from Lithuania. I'm sorry, is it Lithuania? No, it's not Lithuania. Oh my God, what am I doing?
I don't know. Is the honest answer?
Oh, sorry, Estonia. Did I say? It's
Estonia.
It's singing it in Italian, and it is really funny, really funny. And I think. Other good songs for me, Malta. Did you like Malta?
Which was that one?
That was it was quite a Beyonce type.
I did. Who was the woman on the big space hopper?
Yeah, that was her.
Yeah. I mean, you have to hand it to them, actually, just in terms... I mean, I've just had someone saying Eurovision should be renamed Eurotrash. I disagree completely. I actually think that... I mean, it was actually founded, my understanding was it was Second World War, post-Second World War, the idea to promote European harmony, and in many ways it has done that. There is no doubt, however, there is a large element of political voting, isn't there, when you look at countries or at least neighbouring countries who vote for each other. And Terry Wogan, the late Terry Wogan, was so brilliant at guessing where the 12 points would go to.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it does get obvious, but you can get a country like where I go back to Portugal in 2017. That it was just a song. I know you don't like ballads, but it was just a great song, and politics didn't come into it. Because everybody voted for it, but it won. So I think politics, yes, does come into it, but the best song or the best act will, in the end, it will come through. It will come, or perhaps top 3. I mean, if you get top 3 or top 5, you're still doing really, really well. So it should be very, very interesting tonight.
And also the voting slightly differently. I quite enjoyed the way they've changed the voting over the last 2 semi-finals. I'll let people see it for themselves tonight. So you'll be sitting back watching tonight?
Yeah, be sitting back watching with family and friends, and we print out these sheets. You know, I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure you do these things, right? Can you see that? You know.
Yeah. So what are your categories? Do you have categories like best dress, best dance? No, you don't do that.
No, we just sit around and everybody starts off going, "Oh, this is terrible. That's never going to win. Oh, that's awful." And then you go, "Oh, that's not bad." Then you have to tot it up at the end, and you can't remember till they do the recap, and then we have a little bet between us who's got the top 3. Right. I mean, it's just fun. It's great fun.
So other friends of mine are having parties where you have to go as a country, and then you have to take a dish from that country. So if you're Italian, you have to take pasta, or if you're Greek, you take tara masalata, or whatever you have to do.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. I think we must be just getting pizzas or something. But it's just. It's good. It's great fun.
It really is. Well, thank you so much. Really good to talk to you, Mike. Enjoy tonight as well. That's Mike Canara, singer-songwriter.
Thanks, David.
He made 2 Eurovision entries. He's CEO of music company Micasso. Keep all your messages coming in, please. So obviously Eurovision on tonight. I'm going to ask Steve Denyer, who will be here after this break, his thoughts on that. I know he's probably oh my goodness, it's off again. Let's take a break, and then Steve Denyer will be here with his delights. This is Weekend Breakfast.
Starmer humiliated on TV in Albania. This was a fascinating one, really, because he'd sort of arranged this whole trip, brought a lot of the press pack out to Albania, talking about returns and returns policy, and said we want to do something along the lines that Albania does. They have an agreement with Italy, and then the Albanian Prime Minister said, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're not going to be doing it with us."
Well, I couldn't believe it when I was watching it, because I thought this is... the planning hasn't gone to plan, or hasn't gone quite right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk Now. Louise has been in touch. David, apart from being a good song by Sam Ryder, he actually bothered to tour Europe beforehand. Very good point, actually. Talking on the radio, meeting people, basically he put the effort in. It was also a great song, and he was a brilliant performer as well. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Excuse me, just in terms of other issues, Starmer is a clown, according to Kevin in Barnstable. The competent lawyer disguise has been debunked. Nothing but a job's worth with not one original thought in his head. I wonder if he can actually change a light bulb. Brilliant show, David. Thanks, Ian. I'm surprised there was any money left in the Gulf for Trump to get after Rach and Keir did their pitch over there. Political standards, David. This is Mick in Wallington, one of our regulars. Good morning, Mick. Political standards in the UK have fallen so much that David Lammy is Foreign Secretary, an absolute disgrace. Keep all those messages coming in. I'm asking, do you think Keir Starmer is undoing Brexit by having this closer relationship with the European Union? And if he is then not listening to the 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit and alienating many former Labour supporters, which is what we're seeing across the country. Your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Right, Mr. Steve Denyer joins me this morning, Virgin Radio's presenter extraordinaire. Good morning.
Good morning. I missed you, Dr. David. Welcome back.
That's sweet. Thank you very much.
It's great to see you again.
I thought I would have a week off just to celebrate being a year older.
And how do you look even younger?
Do you know what it is? Actually, I had some sleep. I saw my family.
Yes.
I had some more sleep.
Who'd have thought that would work?
Yeah. No, it's the lack of sleep.
Of course, yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you have to get up so early. Listen, before we get to the serious stuff, loved your Eurovision chat a moment ago.
Oh, did you? Yes.
Can I just put it out there to everyone who's watching and listening?
Yes.
What's the greatest Eurovision moment ever? I know you'll have an opinion, but do you want to give out the text number? We'll have some fun with this.
0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can message us on X as well at talkTV. Yes, your favourite Eurovision moment or song?
Well, exactly. So I'm going to leave it to you. It could be a moment, it could be a song, it could be a terrible thing that happened.
Hallelujah, songs of love.
This is exactly what I was hoping was going to happen.
Yeah, good.
Basically, David's going to sing a cappella for the last 20 minutes.
L'oiseau et l'enfant.
I beg your, same to you.
Yeah, that was 1977. Anyway,
okay, we'll go through it.
So let's do some serious stories now.
Yeah, there's lots of serious, quite shocking stories. If I can take you to page 1 of The Sun today, this is quite unbelievable. You know, one of the biggest kind of R&B stars in the world here.
Tell us more.
So he's been, I mean, unbelievable news when I found out. Chris Brown being held in UK custody on GBH charge before going on this massive tour, this huge tour. In case you don't know who Chris Brown is, he dated Rihanna about a decade ago. You had this guy who, in his younger years, sang with the Church. He became the biggest R&B star of all time. He made something like $70 million last year doing this tour that he's about to do just in the States. He sold 140 million records. Now, there have been problems dogging him over the last decade, and people saying, you know, he's very much a bad boy. This incident stems back a couple of years ago in London, where it was alleged he hit a music producer with a tequila bottle. So he flies into Manchester, and the police knew he was coming into Manchester, and they've arrested him.
He flew in for the tour and got arrested?
Yes, he flew in to rehearse for the shows coming up. The first show, this is all being cast in doubt now. The first show is supposed to be on June the 8th in Amsterdam, but it looks like he's still going to be in prison. They're saying he's going to be moved to Strangeways.
Really?
So this is unbelievable. This is a huge, huge American star who's found himself in custody. Friends had to deliver a KFC, apparently, to him while he was being held at the police office in Salford. So all eyes on this to see what's going to happen. But it would seem that there was a strategy. People knew when he was coming into this country, and that they acted as soon as he did, in fact, come in. He's been accused over the years of just being a really bad boy, you know, plenty of kind of previous allegations of behaving badly and behaving with violence as well.
I mean, it's quite graphic, the detail here, as to the alleged offence. But it sounds pretty grievous.
Yeah, yeah.
But it shows no one's above the law.
No, it doesn't.
So
And this is a shocker. Most people think, oh, he could buy his way out, but no, not in this case. That tour is supposed to be huge. The dates of that tour, he's playing places like the Co-op Arena in Manchester and Villa Park, and, you know, the big Tottenham. These fit like 80,000 people in. So this is a big, big tour. It could have been one of the highest grossing shows of the whole year. So watch this space. Watch this space.
Right, let's move on to Sean Diddy Coombs' trial.
Yeah, I just thought as this tour goes on week by week, we should give you an overview as to... I mean, this is massive. All eyes on this tour. This person who might be kind of brought in to these videos, these
You'll
freak-off
have
parties.
to tell me more. I'm not across this one at all.
So where do you want to begin? I mean, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, as he was known in the years. I'll stop with all the previous names. Was a huge kind of record company boss, media mogul. He has been, he's pleaded not guilty to racketeering, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. Right. And his ex, Cassie Ventura, is almost like the star witness. Now, she's been questioned by both camps over this week. And it's really lurid stuff. I mean, I don't want to go into detail, but there's these kind of sex parties known as freak-off parties that she was involved in. She's been saying, you know, look, I did love him, but I was scared of him, and I was brought into this. There's also this video, awful video, filmed in a Los Angeles hotel with him attacking her. The world's seen these bits and pieces. So this is a court case. We're 5 days in. She appeared on the stand really heavily pregnant, giving her version of events, saying that, you know, he's a very powerful man. She was frightened of him. She kind of went along with what he wanted to do. But it's just getting started here, and it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of nervous people. There's pictures today in the Sun of Leonardo DiCaprio hanging out with him, and of course Justin Bieber in the past has had a lot to do with him. So the big question is, how much did they know? How much did everybody know that this kind of behaviour was going on in the background? Because it would seem that a lot of people knew about it. Whether they were involved in it is a different thing, but there could be many people due to, you know, who could be asked to kind of testify and could be part of this court case.
Right.
So there could be a lot of stuff. There's videos of these parties as well at the moment that are being shown within the court. But of course, you never know what might leak out.
Quite. And obviously it's an ongoing case.
Yes.
This I read in the Telegraph this morning about the Beckhams. You're going to tell us more about this. The headline is How Brooklyn Joined Prince Harry in the Fight Back Against Their Perfect Families. I read this morning, so this is about Brooklyn and Harry teaming up, having dinner, discussing the similarities between their families. Yeah. And I just thought, you two spoiled, rich idiots.
I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you?
No.
Showbiz.
Do you want to just explain it? Because there's a picture here, isn't there, of the extended Beckham family here.
Yes.
And just what is going on under this? So this is after Brooklyn Beckham skipped his father's 50th birthday party. They thought the family might come together.
Yes.
It doesn't look like
there's tons of this. You know, Mother's Day, they were the only people who didn't reach out and say what a great mother Victoria Beckham is. Look, there's lots of... We don't know for certain, and there's lots of people with different speculations, but it would seem that when Brooklyn got together with Nicola, it would seem that she has kind of driven a wedge in between the family happiness.
Similar with Harry and Meghan.
Well, exactly.
Yes.
But although today's claims are that it's Meghan and Nicola who formed a bond at a recent dinner party.
Not Harry and Brooklyn.
Exactly that. So this is the current thing, that it was actually them two getting together, and it's been leaked that they were at this kind of, you know, the home wreckers get together, if you know what I mean. That's what it's being told. But also, I mean, I spoke about this with Alex last week. There's rumours that it's actually Romeo, who's the youngest son, and his girlfriend that caused the latest spate of problems with apparently... She's not good enough for the family and stuff. So it would seem that they were a right mess, that family. I mean, it's nice to know, isn't it? You can have all the money in the world and the glitz and the glamour and the opportunities, and yet you could still be... families are difficult. Families are very
Well, I
difficult.
think also the thing is that they've got so much money that they have no sense of purpose. So these kids, so what I read into this, Brooklyn and Harry are similar in that they have absolutely no sense of purpose, and so therefore they're sort of drifting around trying to think that they're important. I mean, when Harry was good and looked after the veterans, then great.
Yes.
But then again, with Brooklyn Beckham, what do you do when your parents are so successful and so wealthy?
But he started off okay. He did those disastrous cooking videos.
Yeah.
People were interested. He seemed that before she came along, it would seem that things were quite sweet within the family unit. It's only actually something's happened in the last couple of years.
It's the wife.
It's her family, I think, and
It's
his
the wife.
family. It's the wife.
It's the wife.
It's the wife.
Yeah. The eldest son believes he's been made to feel like he's an idiot and stupid with his wife's support. Yeah, because she's wheedled in there, so
Yes.
it makes it look like
Of course
she's
she is.
supported, but she's not. Actually.
Remember, she's from a very powerful family as well.
Yes.
They're very rich. So it's all to play for within this. But what a mess.
what
And you would
a
have thought, I mean,
mess.
so that, you know, David's 50th took place the other week, and it was in London. Brooklyn was in London. So people thought, well, maybe they, you know, maybe he would go along to his dad's 50th, you know.
Well, you would have thought so.
And he didn't.
So I'm being told that Brooklyn used to date Romeo Beckham's girlfriend.
Right, okay.
Did you know that?
Well, I mean, I heard rumours, but I hear that it's more to do with her dating Madonna's son.
Oh my. I can't keep up.
Rocco Ritchie, and things that came out of that
'Cause he's not
relationship.
poor.
Well, exactly. I mean, you know, it's a right mess. Bang your heads together and get on with it.
Oh,
you know?
for goodness sake. And I don't want to see it written about in the newspapers. Not interested. Take your problems
I see a
away.
podcast coming.
Oh,
Megan and Nicola.
No, Megan and Nicola. Yeah.
The Home Wreckers United.
Which will have absolutely no ratings at all. We'll take a break for the moment, Steve, and Steve will be back after this break, and we'll go through some more entertainment news, and also we'll be talking more about Eurovision. That's still to come. Woo, 9:35. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Steve Denyer is in the house. That's why I have no idea what's going on. 9:37. You were going to say something to me. No. Are we doing the Eurovision thing yet?
We could do the Eurovision thing now, or do you want me to get on? I've seen a really great theatre production.
Why
I've got
don't we
something
do
to
that
watch.
first?
Then maybe we can kind of loop back to it.
go
But
on then.
once again, the question
What have you
is,
seen?
well, the question is the greatest Eurovision moment ever. So get them in.
I'm
We'll
getting a
go
lot.
through it. Can I start with possibly the greatest theatre? You know I like to go to the theatre for
I know you never invite me.
There's a production that I've been meaning to see because everybody's been raving about it. So
Right.
I went along on Tuesday and thought, I'm determined to hate this. Because not everyone can be right. It's got like literally 10 out of 10 reviews. Operation Mincemeat.
Never heard of
So
it.
the Fortune Theatre in London. It's based on the British intelligence operation where a dead body was dressed as a Royal Marine carrying fake invasion plans. You remember this? And it kind of... it's just incredible. Let me show you a little bit and I'll explain what it's about. Operation Mincemeat, the trailer for you. It's very hard
Wow.
to show you just 30 seconds.
I thought I was surprised it was a musical. But
it's a musical.
Well, clearly.
But the songs are brilliant and they're funny. And what I didn't know, so it's quite slapstick.
Right.
And then about half an hour in, they do a song about the corpse and, you know, who this person was and blah, blah, blah. Strangely moving. Really moving. So basically, you've got 5 actors who you've just seen, if you've been watching, playing something like 85 different parts.
Okay.
And it's almost set around chaos. So they leave the stage and they come back completely different 2 seconds later. And they're playing so many different parts, and it gets more extravagant
so
as the
where
show is this
goes
on? It's on in Covent Garden in London at a place called the Fortune Theatre.
Because that wasn't filmed there.
No,
was that's a huge theatre.
That was just because the theatre's so small that it's in. Literally, there's just a couple of 100 people that it can fit. Right. So I turned up 10 minutes before it was due to start on Tuesday, 3 p.m. every Tuesday, the matinee, and I managed to get. There were only 2 seats left. I got a seat for £45.
Very good. So can I just ask you, though, for people who are thinking of going to the theatre, where do you find your listings and stuff? Because in the old days, I'd go to Time Out magazine. I don't even know if that's a thing.
Yeah.
Do you go online? Where do you go?
This one was solely through kind of word of mouth. So Tom Allen, who's on Virgin Radio at the weekend, said to Steve, you've got to see this. Right. And he's been to see it 5 times. And I was Googling around, and I learned there's a whole network of people who've been like 14, 15 times. Because apparently they swap different characters, and there's almost like a kind of tick list. Have you seen so-and-so playing so-and-so? So it's really, really great. Some poignant moments, some funny moments. Who'd have thought that you could turn kind of a British intelligence operation into a musical? Honestly, I wanted to hate it. I thought it can't be as good as I've heard, but it's seriously, seriously impressive. The only downside is it's the smallest theatre I've ever been to, and it was extremely hot in there. So there's a Chinese woman sat next to me who fell asleep, but she fell asleep with her eyes open. It was the most disturbing thing. I turned round and she was like...
Was she asleep or dead?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Did you actually stop to find out? No.
No, I was fixed. I wanted to get me £45 worth.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Honestly, a 5 out of 5 affair.
Okay, brilliant.
Operation Mincemeat, go and see it.
Now, if you want to watch something, what should we watch?
This is, you know, Netflix do these documentaries on crime. This is the Fred and Rose West British horror story. Lots of people around the world don't know about this.
Yeah.
Obviously, it happened in Gloucester. We found out about it in the 90s. May I show you a little bit of the clip?
May.
Everyone's watching this and talking about it.
What you see is a cunning man who's living in a fantasy.
He was worse than you could ever imagine. We were in a lot of danger, but we couldn't see it.
We see the hallmarks of the sadistic psychopath. Not 1, but 2.
How? How can they do it? Why?
You'll never get protection out of me with some eye up there.
Wow.
This was when I was a trainee journalist. I went to kind of to college in the 90s. This was on. So we studied this as it was going on and what you could and what you couldn't say. Yes. Just the most incredible story, really. 12 victims were confirmed, bodies recovered. I mean, Fred committed suicide on New Year's Day in 1995, but he'd actually said that there were over 30 bodies. There must have been so many others that were never found. It's a really interesting story, these two getting together. There's lots of children that are still alive, and they're in this documentary. There's actual tapes of Fred West talking about, and he, you know, just kind of chilling, really. It just comes up so matter-of-factly about murdering people. His first daughter, Heather, was the first person they found under the pavement. Apparently the other kids were going to school saying, you know, we better be good, otherwise we'll be buried underneath the pavement. The teachers thought, there's weird stuff going on here. Then they investigated it. Rose West is still alive. She's in prison. So you get to hear kind of tapes of her being recorded as well. She was put in a safe house while the Fred thing was going on. Obviously, he committed suicide. She took the blame for the rest of it, but it still kind of rumbles on, really. And what you're left with in this documentary is, you know, the effects that it's had on the survivors and people who knew the people that were killed as well. I would have liked to have seen a bit more kind of psychology going into what happened, and would it have happened had they not met each other? and stuff. It doesn't really kind of go under the skin, but it is really one of those shocking serial murder cases that happen on our doorstep. It happened in Gloucester.
Yeah.
That home, 25 Cromwell Street, has been bulldozed now, so it's just like a little kind of walk through. But people go there all over the world to have a look because it's on the crime map now. You know, it's
go and have a look.
People do.
Right.
But, you know, literally journalists around the world travel to Cromwell Street and Gloucester to cover
that's
this case.
on Netflix.
It's a three-parter. It's on Netflix. They do it so well.
They do.
And there's plenty of stuff, like I say, that you wouldn't have seen before. The footage of Fred being taken back to the patio in Cromwell Street. And I'd never seen that. It's his police footage. And he's saying, well, you know, she's buried there and I buried this person here. I mean, it's so shocking, but he's so calm when you see it. So it's a difficult watch, but Netflix do it well, and I think it's important that we remember there's a lot of people that died here,
absolutely.
a lot of people that were really down in their luck in the first place, that just took a wrong course in life and met them, and bad things happened.
Crikey. 3-1 hours, is that? Are they about
3-1 hours, yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about Virgin Radio Britpop, because I hear it playing all over the building.
Yes, we're doing a couple of tonight at 6 p.m, tomorrow at 6 p.m. on Virgin Radio Britpop. We've got my Britpop playlists. And so John...
Easy for you to say.
I have to host the thing. John Power, now he was the lead singer of the Lars. The Lars were a rock band before Britpop. So they did There She Goes. You know that song.
I do know that song.
He then took some time out and became the lead singer of Cass. So you've got somebody before the Britpop movement, somebody right in the middle of it. Cass are going to be warming up for Oasis this summer, just before the, you know, the big moment when the brothers go on stage. So my chat with him tomorrow night. So look out for that. We've got another one tonight at 6 p.m. as well.
And I happened to see a picture of you with Andy Bell from Erasure.
Yes.
So I was like, what?
Yeah, Andy Bell from Erasure is going on a tour. He's just releasing solo stuff. But what they're cleverly doing is remixing some of the Erasure songs as well. So
so I'm desperate to see them on tour again.
Okay.
Could you just tell them? I'm just desperate
Of course
to
I
go
will.
and see them on tour.
He said that he's meeting up with Vince soon.
Oh, good.
And I said, will it be Erasure stuff? And he said, I can't say, but it's gonna be.
Well, we can go along for a drink.
You gotta go.
Can't we?
Got to go. Got to go.
OK, so have we done everything that we can go back to Eurovision?
Should we go back?
Right, let's go back to Eurovision, just very quickly, by the way, about Brooklyn and Harry. Hi, David. Fetch us the sick bucket. This is Penny in Essex. Brooklyn and Harry would have nothing without their families. It's always the wife who causes the rift.
Oh,
this is gonna
I love it.
Had it with my own son and the person he married. Pathetic. Penny, thank you.
Well, it's true what Penny says, you know, families are families. It doesn't matter how much money you've got, how much importance, how much power. There's always that dynamic, isn't there, that could go wrong.
Happy birthday, belated birthday, David. Absolutely love your shirt. Thank you. I'm also a 1969 baby. Don't give away my age. I'm also a Taurus. Very good, solid, dependable, reliable. Was Israelites by Decca and the Aces #1 in the charts when you were born? I'll have to go and look it up. Great show, Jess. Now, this one from Adam in Skipton. I cannot believe we're still providing entries to Eurovision. I voted to leave the EU in 2016, and this is a clear betrayal of the referendum. Well, the thing is, of course, Eurovision...
What's your view on that?
Well, Eurovision is nothing to do with the EU, so I'm all in favour of the...
Because you have Australia.
Because Australia's in it.
Israel.
Ukraine's in it.
Yeah.
Israel's in it, exactly.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's the EBU, as you know. There are the big five, those people that contribute the most money, including the United Kingdom, and we get an automatic...
I'm hearing from loads of experts that no one actually wants to win this thing. That's why there's so many disasters, because it costs so much money.
But also, can I just talk about the UK's entry? It's rubbish!
Yeah, I mean, so look, here's the thing. If the country can't even put its song into the charts, it got to number 95. It didn't even get into the top 40.
So when they went in, I said, what the hell just happened? I mean, it's just dreadful. But who was it at the BBC thought, oh, that's a great song?
So they got a group of people. I think, personally, that they want to dumb it down. They don't want to win it. So it's like, yeah, we'll give these people a little go.
Well, take it away from the BBC then.
Well, exactly. That's a very good point, isn't it? Yeah. When was the last time, I think, you know, you mentioned earlier, Sam Ryder.
I did.
Was the last time we had someone really, really... Remember, he came second, didn't he?
He did, but only because Ukraine
Because
won.
of the Ukraine, yeah. But he was the last, like, extremely talented person. He did all the work. He went out on tour. We all knew that song. We all knew we loved that song. That was the last Eurovision that really got my attention, I think.
I would agree. So that was in 2022.
Yes.
My favourite Eurovision moment, this is David, is when it finishes.
I mean, it is long, isn't it?
No!
Why can't they do an edited version?
The fact is you've now got these two semi-finals, so talk about over-egging the pudding.
No, but I just mean the big final. Like, tonight's show is so long.
Is it?
Oh, it goes on for days.
I shall be asleep.
Graham Norton ages 10 years.
Is Graham doing
show.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, OK. So I wasn't quite sure if he was doing it, but that's very good, because he's very funny.
He's great,
He's very funny.
He's very much got the Terry Wogan
Yes,
thing. Because we grew up as a family just watching it for Terry Wogan.
And my understanding was that Terry waited for 6 songs before he had a drink. And then his commentary got even funnier. Riverdance in 1994 by a country mile. Was that in 94? OK, I'll believe you. That's Patty in Coulsdon. It has to be the Michael Flatley moment for me, Graham in Birmingham.
Oh, OK.
Did they do an interlude dance? I think they did.
They did, didn't they?
Hi, David. Good programme as usual. Eurovision is total rubbish. Most of the time it's purely political, and like Britain's Got Talent, the worst act normally wins.
I mean, last year it was extremely political. There were people refusing to perform just before the show because of what was going on, you know, politically.
Well, we've already seen Israel being heckled in their dress rehearsal.
There's a chance they could win that tonight, you know. It'd be interesting to see how it's going to be played out. Apparently they were heavily booed last year, but this year there were boos, but not that many.
Well, so let me just go back to some of my favourites. In 1979, Israel, Milk and Honey, Hallelujah.
OK.
Do you know that one?
Can you sing it?
Hallelujah, songs of love. Anyway, Johnny Logan, Bucks Fizz, obviously, and then Nikki French, who I spoke to yesterday. Johnny Logan, again, won in 1987. Linda Martin, Why Me for Ireland.
Is that good? Can you sing that one?
No. No. Katrina, I thought was brilliant.
Katrina was probably...
Love, shine a light.
Next to Sam Ryder, my favourites from the last kind of, I would say, 30 years. Euphoria, Loreen.
Didn't like
That's a great pop song.
It's all right.
Waterloo by ABBA.
Brilliant.
Great song, isn't it? One of the best.
Brilliant.
Dano International.
Amazing.
Diva.
I was there in Birmingham when she won. That's what I was saying
That
earlier.
was an amazing evening, wasn't it?
Amazing. And then, which I just couldn't believe my eyes, actually. The whole thing was extraordinary. And, of course, it was the beginning, I suppose, of a genre we'd never seen before.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
When
there
was
was
that?
one song, actually, I've just remembered
that was
this.
98.
I should have done my research. One song called Fairy Tale by Alex, and I can't remember his surname, but I think it was from, like, 2008. He won it. Fairy Tale, I'm in love with the Fairy Tale.
Yes, that was very good.
I love that.
It was Alexander Rybak.
That's exactly
in 2009 for Norway.
Brilliant.
And
Absolutely brilliant.
Didn't he have a violin?
Yes.
Yes.
And he came back years later, and he hasn't aged a bit.
Yeah.
But incredible. Really great pop songs.
So just in terms of the runners and riders for this year, I'm still going with Spain. What are the big runners and riders?
I'm going to say Sweden, otherwise known as the sauna song. Bara Badu.
Oh no, that was very funny. I like that one.
That's good. Gimmick songs have never won. There's never been a gimmick song that's won. And the Sweden don't usually, they take it a bit more seriously, but this could win. I would say Austria. KJ, Wasted Love. It's a 24-year-old who's a trained... Sorry?
KJ did JJ.
He's an opera star.
Right.
He's gone into... He can do kind of amazing...
Didn't like it.
Falsetto. You didn't like it. OK. And then us. We've got a 1% of winning. We couldn't even get into the charts I've put here.
we will not be winning. Steve, always good to
see you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy Eurovision.
Thank you so much.
Watching the whole thing?
I'll probably be in bed. Got a bit of a bad throat, but you know, I know.
Gargle.
Thank you.
Right, we'll take a break. After the break, your thoughts, calls, and messages. This is Talk. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Keir Starmer humiliated on TV in Albania. This was a fascinating one, really, because he sort of arranged this whole trip, brought a lot of the press pack out to Albania, talking about returns and returns policy, and said we want to do something along the lines that Albania does. They have an agreement with Italy, and then the Albanian Prime Minister said, oh yeah, by the way, you're not going to be doing it with us.
Well, I couldn't believe it when I was watching it, because I thought this is... the planning hasn't gone to plan, or hasn't gone quite right.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Final part. How did that happen? 5 minutes to 10. Let's take a call. John is on the line from Woking. Hi, John.
Good morning, David.
Good morning, sir. What's on your mind?
Brexit.
Yes.
What two tiers up to?
Oh, yeah.
Brexit got royal assent. It passed into law.
Correct.
Well, what does that mean with regards to what Stalin's up to in Europe? Can he alter things that are in law without going to Parliament and changing?
No, he can't. He can't is the honest agreement, answer to that. But under the TCA, what he's going to do is to try and align us with Europe, but without actually changing the letter of the law, and then they will start to agree with having sort of the similar regulatory standards. I mean, it's basically two fingers up at the people who voted for Brexit, in my book.
And we're all, the man's an idiot. I don't know what. The longest this is all going to last is when we get to the next election. Because Nigel, as we know, Nigel will just turn it all over.
Do you think Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister?
I told him that on LBC about 5 years ago. I spoke to Nigel, like I say, about when he was on LBC. I said, Nigel, if you want to be Prime Minister, you could be. And I said, I'd certainly vote for you. And there you go.
Yeah.
He will be Prime Minister.
Well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating thereof, so we shall wait and see. John, really good to talk to you as well this morning. Thanks very much for all your calls. Peter Cardwell joins me this morning.
Hello there, John. Certainly not woking.
Thank you very much. I loved you as a baby.
Yes, it was very funny.
So do you want to explain that to people who don't know what I'm talking about?
So there's this AI thing where people can just put your words into a baby's mouth that looks a little bit like you.
It looked really like you.
I mean, it sort of did, yeah. I mean, I look a bit like a baby anyway, because it's sort of quite pudgy.
It just made me laugh.
It was very funny.
It was very funny.
But then I started then I put up that there were actually very few photos of me as a baby because I was quite an ugly baby. And my mother once said to me, well, you were quite an ugly baby, and developing photos was expensive in those days. So I was quite cute. I was sort of a cute toddler. I had the long hair and all the rest of it. But there were only about 2 photos of me as a baby.
But it's also the Northern Irish accent coming out of that baby.
It is funny.
For some reason, it really tickled me.
Yeah, it is quite funny, certainly. And AI can do all sorts of things, and you can be duped by them. You need to be careful. But I think people mostly know I'm not actually a talking baby.
Well, I don't know, actually.
Some might think I am.
Well, the similarities
juvenile thing as well. The crying, the screaming, the sleepless nights,
kicking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The incontinence. Yeah. Anyway, so
what's coming up?
Lots coming up. We're talking about whether Brexit's being reversed by Starmer. I know you've been talking about that. Assisted dying. Big story in the Times today. You might have missed actually about how Washington lied to us time and time again about Joe Biden's cognitive functions.
Yes, I did read that.
The full story has been told, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on.
But it was her, wasn't it?
Yeah, well,
it was Joe Biden.
Well, there are many people, but certainly Jill Biden was one of the key people. We've got Darren Paffey, Labour MP, coming up after the news as well. We're going to talk about whether Labour could U-turn on the winter fuel allowance. Assisted dying, still a big story.